Really? It'll pass with a 100% committee vote.
She was busy at a meeting or something.
All right, Miguel.
We good to go?
Yeah.
Excellent. Good morning, everybody. We got our technology issues worked out. As I don't know, sometimes it works great and sometimes it doesn't. Welcome, everybody, to County Commission this morning. Today is the 22nd of January. To start us off this morning, Matt asked Councilman David Burton from Parowan City Council if he would offer an opening prayer for us. Then our I don't know what Karsten is. He's our assessor. He's going to lead us in the Pledge of Allegiance.
Our Heavenly Father, we're indeed grateful for this opportunity to assemble here in this commission meeting under these favorable circumstances. We're grateful for the opportunities that afford us to do so, for the freedoms we enjoy, and for blessings to live in this free country and to be able to live in this county. And we're grateful for all that thou hast bestowed upon us. We're grateful for our predecessors, for our heritage that has set the foundation for the governing of this county, and we are grateful for the blessings that are afforded us. And we pray for thy Spirit to be here to guide and direct all those who are in attendance. Bless those that lead, the commissioners, that they can be inspired and guided by thee, be unified and be inspired to make the decisions that are in the best interest of all the citizens of this county. We're grateful for all those who attend, that there can be a spirit of unity and understanding, and that this can be a productive meeting, and thy Spirit will guide. And we thank thee for the moisture that's been given to us. We pray for thy continual blessings, that we will be able to continue to receive the moisture that we need according to thy will and according to that which is in our need at this time. We thank thee again, Heavenly Father, for all we have, and pray for thy guidance this day, and do so in the name of Jesus Christ. Amen.
Amen.
Follow me in the Pledge of Allegiance. I
pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible,
with liberty and justice for all.
All right. We don't have any minutes prepared for today. Get a motion on the approval for claims.
I'll move to approve the claims for payment from January 8th, 2024 through January 21st, 2024.
Second.
It's been moved and seconded. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. All right. We'll move on to our departmental reports. Assessor. Karsten's up first.
Good morning.
Good morning.
Couple things that I wanted to talk about, just that you need to be aware of. Some of it, it's not necessarily bad news, but just information. I just want to talk about the DMV for a minute and just give you kind of an overview of the DMV and what's happening there. But initially, the counties like our county, Beaver County, smaller counties, if you can think back 35 years ago when Cedar was, Parowan, Canaraville were just really small towns. The state, it didn't make sense for them to have a full-time employee or full-time employees and operate a building and so on and so forth. So they would sign contracts with counties to operate the DMV. And those contracts, the intent of those contracts were to cover the cost of operating the DMV. And so it makes sense in a smaller county to have the county administer the DMV and have the state reimburse the county. But the last negotiation of reimbursement rates was over 20 years ago. So we're operating with a reimbursement, a county reimbursement from a contract that was negotiated over 20 years ago. I think it was 23 or 24 years ago at this point. And since then, the state has increased its rate, and this is not something that I came up with, but they have increased their rate by over 1,000%, while the counties have not seen any change. So just to give you an idea of what that looks like, we are reimbursed at approximately $100,000 a year, and the county outlay is approximately $500,000. And the original intent of those contracts is to cover the costs so that the county doesn't have this huge burden. And the county has a huge burden. It's the times have changed and our county's grown. We've added, DMV employees, and it's not just one person in Cedar and one person in Parowan anymore. It's full staff. Salaries have increased. Benefits have increased. It's been there's been a lot of changes. We are the last Class 3 county where the assessor operates the DMV. All the other larger counties have, foisted the DMV back onto the state as it has made less and less sense to operate a DMV at a huge loss. So these other counties have said, you can take it back. It's costing our taxpayers a lot of money, and we're not seeing a real benefit. So third-class counties, just to give you a frame of reference, that's over 40,000 up to 175,000. When you think about at least our county, if this was a small business, you'd really reconsider losing $400,000 a year before you up your rates, or did something to make some kind of change. But I think at some point we need to decide, what is reasonable and what kind of a cost to our county is acceptable. The challenge that we face as a county in renegotiating this is the way that the state structured the contract is that all the counties are on the contract together. So you have to have every single county go together to renegotiate their contract. So they're really kind of cumbersome, which I've started that process. So I've contacted the other smaller Class 2 or Class 5 and 6 counties and said, we need to renegotiate these rates because the parity is not there. We're getting taken by the state, and it's not a benefit to our county to be losing money for a service that we're providing for them. So I'm actively trying to renegotiate that. I've talked to the regional manager, and we're going to talk to Monty Robinson. He's the state state tax he's up at the state tax commission, but yeah, just the idea would be that the contract is renegotiated so that that it's close to covering the cost or covers the cost of us operating it rather than us losing hundreds of thousands of
How
dollars.
was that
a
received?
year. What was that?
How was that received from the state folks?
So I talked to Sharon in Wayne County. And I was asking her the last time. I said, "When's the last time you guys tried to renegotiate this?" And she said, "Well, I went to the tax commission 5 years ago, and they just didn't listen to me. But I'm a small county, and so we'll see. Rather than just one person doing it, having every county together do it. The upside of a county operating a division of motor vehicles is that we do it 1,000 times better than the state, and I know that we do it 1,000 times better than the state because we have a ton of people that come from Washington County up here and we have people that come from Washington County to Parowan to receive service. And so there is a benefit. Counties just do it better. I mean, that's, unfortunately the truth. The counties operate DMVs in a more efficient manner, or maybe the customer service friendly. I don't know the exact difference, but there are tons of people that come from there to here. And so there is some benefit to the citizens of a county to have the county operate the DMV. There's no question about that. It is a real point of frustration dealing with a state-run DMV, and anybody any of those patrons that come up here can attest to that. The problem is that we don't receive the money for those people. It goes back to Washington County, so because that's where their registration fees go to. It goes to the state.
You feel like they would? What do you feel like they'll do? Do you think they'll ante up, or do you think they will want to just do their own thing? And if they did that, would they assume our employees?
I think the benefit to the county would be the first choice is to renegotiate.
Right.
And I think that's what we should do. So, and I think it might be year-long, 2-year-long. It might be an effort to do that.
Would it be of benefit to get UAC involved?
I've called Brandy and the legislative liaison, the attorney. I can't think of his name. And I've just said, hey, we're going to need your help because, 5 years ago they tried to do this.
They would be
and nothing
helpful in
happened.
this matter.
Yeah. And we've got to do something about it. In a smaller county like Wayne County, their reimbursement is a couple $100, but she's spending 2 days a week full time, for a couple $100 a month.
Wow.
That the county's being reimbursed, and obviously that's a really poor use of time value of money.
We have a glut of legislation this year and last year, but it might be worth some kind of a mandate that at least parity is given as far as what the counties. I mean, we deal with unfunded mandates a lot, and we provide services. I mean, that's what we do. But to be eating, what'd you say, $400,000 a year?
Roughly, yeah.
For Iron County.
Yeah.
Maybe you talk one of our legislators into running a bill on this.
That's what I was thinking. Yeah.
Is that what
Yeah.
you're thinking, John? Sorry to cut you off.
Oh, that's okay. I think it may involve, each of you or one of you also kind of lobbying on behalf of
We can absolutely
our
do that.
county
That's
to
easy.
Yeah.
to the commission to really help us to renegotiate it. I think it needs to happen. It's probably been 20 years too long, and so just want to make you aware of that. That's something to think about. So we've backfilled 2 positions. Riley Carter left for other employment, so we backfilled her position. She does personal property, and the person we hired was Nellie Garcia. And then we also backfilled an assessor position, and that was Kevin Swenson. And something to note there is we are required to, or we're being required to do modeling for our county, and it's modeling is a complex task. To create a model and to apply it to your data requires really an expert and somebody that has an education in it, and it's a very it's a very niche position to try to get somebody to fulfill that role. But Kevin was, he taught at LDS Business. He was the dean of students for LDS Business College. Taught statistics, regression analysis. He's taught all the theory of how to do it, and so he accepted our offer of employment and now works for Iron County. So
Great.
he's I guess it's not LDS Business College anymore. It's Ensign College now, but yeah. So he's working with us to develop a model and to kind of bring us up to the standard that the state expects, and so that should benefit taxpayers in the long run. A model really helps to try to perfect the valuation process when you're doing it in mass. So another thing to note, and I'll grab this for you. You can look at it if you want, but it's we have an additional requirement now from the Utah State Tax Commission. I'm just so we've got a little bit of you all know from last year, but there's just an increasing clamor by taxpayers for property tax relief. And so the tax burden has shifted dramatically away from commercial and industrial properties and towards residential properties. So you have all of this value sort of changing from commercial industrial to residential, and a lot of that is just a lack of resources that counties have to value commercial property. And so the counties are working with the legislator. The legislator is doing an audit of all the county assessor's offices to determine, how this is happening, why it's happening. And one thing is becoming really clear, and that's that county offices need a lot more commercial support than they have. So the legislator is trying to address that through legislation, and I think maybe you've seen some of the legislation that's been proposed. And that legislation mainly is to assist counties with their budget, specifically for commercial assessment. But our tax representative from the State Tax Commission has suggested that our county in particular be proactive and hire an additional commercial assessor. Something to note, which is, it's not a great statistic, but Brian Hoffmeyer is the over commercial for our county, has the most number of commercial parcels per assessor in the state, and he is swamped. And so he is, he's doing a really good job, but we've made some structural changes to our office, but we will need additional support. There's just no question about it. The other change that the tax commission is making is that, and it's going to affect our budget, is that because of all that pressure from the taxpayers, one of the things they're doing is increasing the educational requirement. And of course, the problem with the increasing the educational requirement is that they don't have an ability for us to do it, to receive education online. So the state is requiring us to get all these extra hours and take all these other classes yearly, but there's not an option to take it online. So that means that the staff from my office has to go up, stay at a hotel in Salt Lake, pay the tax commission, take their class. And a lot of these classes are a week long, just long classes. And I, just to try to prepare you, I think the additional hours are going to cost our county somewhere between $15,000 to $20,000. And so that's not a small amount. Our assessor group is lobbying the tax commission to start providing some of that training online so that we don't have to travel up there and spend all the money. But they have said that it will not be this year or next year that they will be able to start doing that. So it's going to be a couple years before they're able to move to an online teaching format and get it approved through the federal government and the state. It's kind of a...
So that doesn't change the centrally assessed, though.
Doesn't change centrally assessed.
And that's where the big problem is.
That's some of that legislation is designed to provide funding for that, for the centrally assessed stuff. But we'll see. And that's pretty much all I have. Do you have any questions for me?
No.
Okay. Thank you.
Thank you,
Thanks
Karsten.
thanks for the update. IT.
I think he's
He's
tied
knee deep
up.
in 4 other emergencies
Okay.
today.
I didn't see I figured.
I had to pull him off to get our stream going.
That's
so
fine. Let's go to the recorder. Madam Recorder, come on down.
Good morning.
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 Okay, so things are great in my office. Total recordings for 2023 was 12,619. That is down 26% from last year. We had 55 subdivision plats. My revenue was 509,632. We had 869 new accounts for 2023. So the county currently has about 53,817 property accounts. And I ended my year under budget. Yay! I was at 93%.
Good job.
All things were good. We are currently working on 2 projects in my office. So one we've been working on for a few years, and it will take probably as long as I work here to finish it. But the county went on computer in 1983. So any of the documents that were recorded before 1983 are not currently in our Eagle system. We do have them scanned in, but they're not in our Eagle system. So we're working on putting those there so that they're available online for people. Unfortunately, you have to do one document at a time, and there are thousands. So it takes a long time. But we're working on it. John?
Could you elaborate to the commissioners what that means? Like, I think it's very cool, but it's also voodoo to most people.
What it means
To do the indexing and to tie those accounts to the parcels.
Okay, so you have to create the document first, and then you scan in the image, and then you have to type in all the information, index it so that you can search it. And then,
Parcel number.
Yeah.
Is that how?
and the abstract, which is either section, township, and range, or the subdivision, so that people can find them when they're searching. So it's a process, but it's still great. And, if we get 100 a year, then that's 100 more than was there before.
Or they can come down and look at the books and
Well,
find all of that
yes.
information too.
Everything is absolutely available. It's just not available online.
Line. Okay.
But we do have it all. And we actually have it scanned in so I can email it to people. It's just you have to call
nice.
in. You have to know the book and page you need, because you can't search it any other way except for book and page, the old ones.
Yeah.
So it's a little harder, but we're working on it. And then the other thing we did is we just actually barely started this. Kendall created a map for us for our surveys. So we have about 4,000 filed surveys in my office. And we are going to link those surveys to the properties on a map. We just put it online, I think Thursday, just kind of as a beta test for people to look at, give us any feedback. Currently, we have about 1,000 surveys on it. So we have about 3,000 to go. But the idea is you could search your property, see if there's this filed survey, view the image right on the map, and then also see if there's any in the area around you if you needed those. So it'll be really cool, but it's also a process. We'll get it done. So that's what we're working on. Do you guys have any questions for me?
Nope.
Okay, perfect.
Well,
Thank
you
you.
for everything.
Thank you.
Treasurer's office. Welcome, Nicole.
How are you guys? Your handouts.
Yep.
I feel like a school teacher.
Because we feel like we get homework.
Yep.
No, that's what we're all about in my office is numbers, so I have to share them all with you. So I just want to kind of report on how we ended our year. So as you can see on the first one, our product sales, that shows everything that was collected through my office. So we collected over 72 million last year. So I feel like that is one of the highest that we've had since I've been here. So we've been very busy, as you can see by that amount.
Tell me what the rail car payment is.
Rail car is, so they pay that just once a year. In fact, just at the end of the year we get it.
Union
So
Pacific.
it's for how many miles of track
Oh,
you have through your county.
County. Okay.
So, like I say, that only comes in once a year, and so this was last year's amount. This year's amount, well, the 23 amount hasn't been deposited yet, but it's like 72,000, so it's gone up just
A little bit.
barely, yeah. So, the second page is just the distribution that goes to Iron County, not to the other entities. So, of the 72 million, Iron County only gets 13,944,000 of that. So, that shows you the amount that comes just to Iron County. Our pool cash report shows you where we're setting at the end of the year. I ran it as of December 31st, so our funds are looking really good at the end of the year. Our PTIF, the rate was 5.43 last time I reported, and at the end of December it was 5.47, so it's staying nice and high at this point. We're, of course, anticipating the feds will start cutting that rate, but they haven't as of yet. So in interest money last year, we brought in just under $3 million in interest money. So that's super good.
And is that number on here?
Sorry?
Is that number on here? I'm just trying to highlight it.
No, I do have like
That's okay.
papers if you need me to bring them to you that I can show you that.
Yeah, I didn't see that.
You said just under 3?
In the PTIF alone, 327, it was 2,142,435.42, and then with our Morton asset, theirs was around 800, 234.54, and this is only in county funds. So in tax funds, we collected like 167 million, because of course I don't keep money setting in the property tax because I'm paying it out all the time. So ours doesn't get to be very high, but in comparison, the year before in tax funds, it was only 67,000, and last year it was 167,000. So that higher interest rate really is a benefit to us, unless you're wanting to get a loan. But as far as for us, it's really helpful. So our outstanding property taxes are at $9,836,000, and last year we were at $8,728,000. So that is up a little bit. Last week, Melanie started working on our May tax sale, and so she had all the certified prepared and put in the mail last week. So we're starting at 99, and 14 of those are campsites, which we won't sell. So we actually are starting at 85, which is the lowest ever. And I really attribute that to Nicole Beth. She's, every time we get any returns back, even when Carrie gets returns back for her disclosures, she's taking those and searching and trying to find good addresses, any way that we can find to contact them. So that's really, I feel like it's really paid off the last several years in getting our tax sale numbers down. We do not want to sell people's properties, so we really work really hard to try to find people and get them.
The phone calls that make it to me,
Yeah.
the folks that where they didn't get their tax notice, could you kind of explain why it's the individual's responsibility and how to best make sure you're updated?
Yes, it would be so helpful if when people move that they would notify the county, because it is the responsibility of the property owner to provide us with the most current address. But of course, clearly that does not happen. We really wish it would. A lot of them think that if they put a forwarding address with the mail that somehow we're going to be notified. That does not happen. And then we have had a lot of problems this year because they closed the Provo distribution center. So everything is going to Las Vegas. So we did put a note right on the bottom of the tax notice to please mail your your taxes in early and not wait for that postmark, because if you're dropping them off on the 30th, they're being sent clear to Las Vegas before they get postmarked. So they are not going to get postmarked on the 30th. So the postal system is it's having a lot of problems. And of course that trickles down to us. So we're really encouraging people to go and pay by e-check online and really not depend on the postal service to get it here.
It is a problem. There's been several days that I don't even get mail.
We're getting
Several.
stuff back, and we'll call them. We'll have a phone number for them, and the address that we mailed it to is a good address, but it's returned to us, and then we're having to pay 63 cents to remail it. So anybody that can get signed up to get your notice emailed to you, anything we can do, we're doing the best we can to try to get them out and find a good address. But when you have 300 John Smiths, it's pretty hard to track people down. So we really, really ask the public to try to help us make sure we have a good address for you. But we are working really hard, and then we do have a deferral from last year that still owes quite a bit of money. I think John's going to contact him and let him know. So we're a little bit worried about that one and what will happen there. Thankfully, I also ended under my budget, and so I'm super glad about that. We're always glad to end the year on a good note, but I just really want to thank my people, Melanie and Nicole. I mean, we, as you can see from what we collect and distribute, we do a lot of work, and they work really hard, and they don't complain, and they are great people to work with, and I'm super, super grateful for them. So, any questions? My long list.
Thank you for everything you do.
Oh, thank you.
You guys.
Thanks.
Commission. Commissioner Cousins.
All right. Well, the legislative session's kicked off and tracking a lot of bills, and everybody watch their wallets till March 1st, and seeing how that'll affect us. It's interesting how many bills they file every year. It's staggering, but you always have to watch how it's going to affect the county, and so we're actively watching that. It's been really awesome, and it's so easy to get on Zoom and watch those meetings. You can testify in hearings. You can watch them. It's really, really handy. And the other, I went to a really neat Cimbria Patterson with Red Acre Farms had an event. What was that called? Utah Farm Conference? Is that what it's? Was that what it's? Really, that's the name of it. But Thomas Massey, Representative Thomas Massey, she got him to fly out and was able to go and watch him speak. It was really amazing. Just a great
Utah
speech.
Farm and Food Conference.
Farm and Food Conference, Utah Farm and Food. But it was really, really good. Attended that. We had our behavioral health committee meetings this last week. Those were good. It was interesting to note, and I hope I got the name right. My mind is I can't remember, but the Parowan is that the Parowan Prevention Coalition? Is that the name of it that was formed last year? It's really remarkable. We had a gentleman that's in our health district or behavioral health that spoke on that, did a presentation and talked about, they have one in Garfield that we kind of patterned after. There's several of them around now, but it was really neat.
There's one in Cedar City too, right?
Yeah.
Yes, but it's so these are working. These are really, and it kind of goes back. Mike, you know about the DARE program, and kind of goes way back, but they're really effective, and it was really neat to see how effective they've been. In fact, Commissioner Taylor from Garfield said he went back to a national conference and they highlighted Utah and specifically Five County for the excellent results that we've seen with reduced addictions to substances from our youth, and so it's really, really a positive thing. And I actually asked this gentleman in our board to come and do a quick presentation sometime to our commission, and it's really one of those things that it's fun to see. You invest something in, and it's been very successful. That was encouraging. I've got a meeting today at 2:00. It's the Cedar Beaver Watershed Council. The state legislature has set up a kind of these watershed councils throughout the state. We've been involved with the one up in Tooele County, which is the West Desert, and we've made many trips up there. They've actually got a board set up there that they meet. But this is one of the first they've done for the Cedar Beaver Watershed Council, and just talk about water and the importance of water throughout the state. I think there's quite a bit going on, but that's about all I've got to report on.
Okay. Last Friday at the legislature, we had a committee with the Revenue and Tax Commission, and I just wanted to thank Mike and John and Sheriff Carpenter all went up and spoke at that committee. It's HB 113 and sponsored by Rex Ship. It's the gel tax. It's a consumption tax, a sales tax that we're trying to get in place. The people spoke about wanting not to have a property tax. They would rather have a sales tax so that other people coming into our county can help pay for that. I feel like it's really a more fair tax because the more money you spend, the more tax you pay. But folks that are on fixed incomes and that type of thing, they would not pay as much to this tax. And all the great people coming into our county for tourism or meetings or whatever will help pay for our jail. So I think it's really great. Mike will probably talk about it a little more, but I just wanted to thank them for going up there. It did pass that. It'll go to the House in the next few days, and hopefully it passes that. Then it will go to the Senate, to the
It was encouraging that it had passed unanimously
yes,
out of
it
that
absolutely
committee.
did. Yep. So I also went to the Thomas Massey Red Acre Farms Utah Farm and Food Conference. It was awesome, and we got to visit with Tom outside. I've seen him a lot on TV because he went with Ron DeSantis. He was lobbying for him as president. Of course, that all went bye-bye yesterday because he pulled out. But the really neat thing that we saw and talked to him about, he invented a little tiny scoreboard that he wears on his pocket that has the national debt, and it's zipping along. And he said, when I get in the elevator with some of the other Congress people,
Chuck Schumer.
yeah, he will turn it on the brightest setting. So that's kind of fun. We had on the 16th we did hiring interviews for the weed department. We lost our weed person, Casey Adams, and he had done a great job, but he had other things he was going to do in his life. And so we hired Amber Hatch. She actually was working with UDAFT, Department of Agriculture, Utah Agriculture. And I think she'll do a great job. We're excited to have her. She's really a go-getter. She's a pusher, and she has some experience with grant writing. We're excited about that. And we'll be welcoming her in as the weed board supervisor, the weed supervisor in the county here in the next couple weeks. We also had a weed board meeting. We have these several times a year, talking about white top, about thistles that we have in the county that are evasive, and how important it is that we get a hold on them. We have very little white top because we've had such a successful program spraying those. We have to keep up on them, but that is the reason. Now, our our neighbors to the south have not been as successful with their white top, and there is a problem down there. So we keep telling them, you need to make sure that you spray because the prevailing winds come up to Iron County. So that's important that they spray. I think that was about it.
Right. I'll just mention a few things. We had this is transient room tax and restaurant tax season. Those taxes are collected from folks that come and eat in our restaurants and sleep in our hotels, and then that money goes directly back into programs to help fund tourism to build the hotel and restaurant attendance. We had those grant presentations just this last couple of weeks, and then we'll be evaluating those presentations and awarding those funds in the coming days. I was able to attend Home Builders Luncheon. A Home Builders Association is local, the Iron County Home Builders Association. It's a group that we all work with really well. Governor Cox was in attendance and actually installed the new leadership. I'd like to welcome Tyler Allred as the 2024 president of the Iron County Home Builders Association. Just look forward to that association that we have with those guys. We actually work with those guys quite a bit on a bunch of different issues. I was able to meet with the Veterans of Southern Utah folks. They came and presented to us a while back on a veterans center that they're working on bringing here to Iron County. I know Commissioner Cousins met with them before. I don't know if you.
I have met them.
I think
Yep.
I think we've all had the opportunity to meet with them. They're not looking for funding from the county. They're just trying to keep us apprised of their program and things. It's really interesting talking to those guys. They're really motivated. It's fun to see kind of the enthusiasm there. And then last week, Marilyn mentioned John and I and Sheriff Carpenter were able to travel up to the legislature and testify in the Revenue and Tax Committee in regards to House Bill 113. It did pass unanimously out of committee. We were able to talk to other legislators, some other folks there to garner support for that as it moves onto the floor of the House and then ultimately into the Senate. Feeling pretty encouraged about that at the point, but it's not something that we're going to let go by the wayside. We'll continue to lobby for that, work on that. Over the weekend, I don't know if you knew, or it kind of got out via text and stuff. We've had some CO2 exposures at the track back to the Cedar Middle School. This started to happen last Thursday. Our emergency management got involved over the weekend on Saturday. It's been kind of a weird deal. We've had a bunch of people present to the hospital, both here and in St. George, with CO2 levels that were at Cedar Middle School. They immediately shut down the facility. I think the school district has done an excellent job in managing that. Cedar City Fire's been involved, our emergency management. And then over the weekend, brought in a specialized unit from the Utah National Guard, the 85th, which is really a premier hazmat team. They have been evaluating the school. Everybody goes in and can't find anything. These guys have lots more technology than we do locally, and they're working on it. If in fact there is a point of contamination, they'll find it. I believe school today for Cedar Middle School is online, I believe.
For a couple of days,
Yeah,
right?
I got the notice this
For
morning.
a couple of days. And so we do.
It's actually Canyon View Middle. Not Cedar.
What did I say Cedar? It is Canyon View
And
Middle.
you
Yeah.
said it was carbon monoxide, not carbon dioxide?
Monoxide, CO, not not CO2, CL.
See, I don't even know what I'm saying. I hung out with those guys for hours going over. Yeah, I don't know what I'm saying this morning. It's fine.
Is there construction?
He was out there and he they had a
Clarified it.
yesterday. It was
Yeah, it's not CO2. It is carbon monoxide, and it is Canyon View Middle. In fact, when I was just talking about it, I was envisioning Canyon View Middle.
Is there
all my kids
construction
have gone to
going on?
Cedar. So there is some minor construction. They did have, they did find a generator that may have been causing some of those issues on Thursday, but they haven't. The generator hasn't been in use since then, and there were some other exposures on Saturday during junior jazz basketball game type stuff, and so they're confident that they'll get to the bottom of it. It's everything's being handled really responsibly. The hospital's on top of it. The school district's been great. We've got emergency management and Cedar Fire coordinating with the military. We're in really good hands. So
Yeah.
we spent quite
Sounded
a bit of,
like it. Yeah.
spent quite a bit of time on that over the weekend. I'm really appreciative to. I get worried when George calls me at midnight.
That means he's worried.
That means he's worried about something. So anyway, no, we appreciate that. And I appreciate that response and those efforts. So we're on top of that. Let's take a break for about 10 minutes. We'll come back right at 10 for our 10 o'clock calendar. We will see you then.
Brought lunch, so I gotta go check my lunch.
Oh,
Make
good.
Sure we're not burning up.
Sorry, Mark, I didn't mean to interrupt.
No,
I did that sometimes too. It just lapse into.
That's me. I'm thinking about other stuff, and then I got to focus on what I'm.
Hey, I can't turn it off, so watch what you say for a second.
That was good. That was a good response.
Come down there.
You did good.
Madam? Yes. Oh.
I don't even
I have the paper, I don't get them wrong.
I do have that. Thanks, Jeff.
How are you doing, sir? How are you today?
Good.
I look like those towns? Yes. So the towns or municipalities that have their own response to
Today I think would be a
places
little more
like Summit or Pixel that are unincorporated, kind of fall under the county.
It's fairly major.
It's like any other subdivision within the county.
That was crazy. Did you make it over there?
I wasn't sure where it was taking place. It was all off channel on the radio, so it wasn't.
So they, I mean,
That load filled me in.
we're always, we operate under what's called mutual aid. There are a lot of times there's an accident out on the freeway from there.
I'm meeting with. I can't
put stuff. I can't get that.
when I'm going to go to the jail. And Ludlow invited me to come.
Is that what you were coming to tell me? Thank you.
I just saw that you tried to call and it stepped out.
Yeah, and usually it's got a sensor, but I don't know.
For flush and stuff?
Yeah, flush.
I don't know what the bomb squad said the smoking liquid.
I don't know if there's a way to
I was scared.
maybe even just put an emulator on my.
So,
Or you're not coming with
Down
that.
street. North, is that where it was?
the road that ties it down.
Yeah.
Whatever road that is, I'm sorry, but
On 10th West, might have been that street or might have been around the corner, but yeah, it was.
Nobody
Was it not connected?
This is what the state.
Yeah, it's actually already in our ward.
Starting to hit all the individuals. So I got some stuff in the works that I need to know.
That makes sense. I'm actually the word.
Depending on what the
to go on the round file. Looks like stickers or something.
That doesn't be just like I thought you guys were.
I don't do stickers.
That's funny. Oh my. That's the weirdest thing ever.
Yeah.
If there was like 2 stickers and they were cool. They just cleaned out a drawer.
Also, you're on the phone, but I don't know if you want to do /Shakespeare.
There you go, yeah.
Yeah, what is, let me look and see what, I didn't even look and see. So, what, I mean, this is where, so this isn't,
That's
that's 5,
here
right?
for.
So,
Might make Kevin wait, but he's only.
Kevin here. We'll just get Kevin.
Yeah,
I
this,
mean,
this one will be quick.
because this one will be quick. And this should be quick, right?
Depends on how you want to redo his thing later.
I'm just gonna, because this isn't a public hearing, right? No? I'm just gonna go as is.
Okay.
All right, welcome back. So we'll move along with our 10 o'clock calendar. Item number 1, public comment. Public comment is 3-minute time limit per speaker for public comment participants. Should not repeat others' comments, and this is only for items that are not on the agenda. No items related to the commission's role as an appeal board. Comments should be directed to the commission. No attacks on other people's character. And we do limit comments to 3 minutes for items that are not on the agenda. Does anybody have any public comment? Come on up and state your name for the record.
Patrick Larson. I need to do my address.
No.
We don't need your address, just your name.
Okay, yeah, Patrick Larson. I live in Paragoona, Utah. Yeah, I guess we're going to talk about the water thing again and whether or not we're going to do a deed restriction or whatever, right?
Yeah, that's on the agenda.
Just my 2 cents worth on that is.
Well, this is only for items not on the agenda.
Oh,
You'll get to talk.
Yeah, at that point, you'll get to talk during that agenda item.
sorry.
No, perfect. Any other comments?
Items not on the agenda?
Not on the agenda.
I would like to speak then.
Okay, well, after.
I cannot breathe in there. I'll have to speak from back here.
It's okay.
That's fine. Just a minute. We'll let this lady speak, and then absolutely.
I'm Patty Truax, resident of Canaryville, and I just wanted to mention and actually emphasize the fact that I am a resident of Canaryville. And Mr. Bleak, I admire
Yes, sir.
you and Sheriff Carpenter for coming around to the different towns to explain why we need a new jail.
Yes.
whatever it is. And we were never notified of that meeting. The unincorporated areas are not notified of any meetings. That we aren't welcome in their town meetings. We aren't notified of anything. When we actually go to the dump, we can't even dump there, and no one seems to explain to them. We paid municipal taxes for 15 years, and whether they say they've paid for it or not, the only way they can pay for it is by charging people who hike in Canara Falls. They don't tax their what they call their incorporated residents. But I just think that is unfair. We don't need to have a designation of unincorporated or incorporated. We should all be considered residents of Canaryville. So I'd like you to pass that on to these mayors, that we are the residents and we should be treated equally like all the residents. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Yes, ma'am. What? Tell us your name and talk loud.
I'm Mrs. English. Husband and I live in Cedar City. I'm here because of the water rights issue. But my comment is, I'm autistic. I have sensory overload with sights, sounds, and smells. This building is so overwhelming with artificial fragrances, and this council room is especially, I can't even participate. I don't have smartphone, I don't have internet, I don't have cable or TV, getting on Zoom, doing stuff online. I can't do that. I just feel like I'm being very discriminated against, and I'm not the only one on this kind of, on my autism spectrum. I'm like the canary that gets sent into the mine. I know you can't understand this. Maybe you can't understand this, but the smells are so overwhelming to me. I just like to.
Can I address that? So, I noticed the same thing today, and we got a new cleaner, and I don't know what they sprayed, but it is strong. You're right.
It's not just. I mean.
Yeah. So I'm going to visit with them about that, because I don't think I was quite as bad as you, but it was pretty unpleasant for me. So.
Well, thank you.
Yeah, and that was I first noticed that this morning.
Well, I noticed that in Cedar City too. You know, the last water meeting I went to.
Yeah.
The whole.
People try to make it smell nice, and.
Well, then people wear perfume. Yeah. Even if they say they don't have perfume on, I mean, the men are worse than women these days. Well,
I have a teenage boy. I can attest to that.
Body odor smells better than perfume. I'm not being.
I have a teenage boy. No.
I get it.
Cow dung anywhere.
Okay. Thank you.
Thank you.
Any other?
Anybody else? All right. Move on to agenda item number 2. This is a presentation of annual PILT payment from the state of Utah, presented by Kevin Bunnell.
Morning, Commissioners. I'm here on my annual pilgrimage to deliver the PILT payment from the Division of Wildlife Resources for Iron County. So I have a check here for the county for $2,505. And also just to express, our appreciation with the working relationship that we have with Iron County, with prairie dog issues and everything else. I think it's come a long ways over the last decade. I think it'll continue to get better. And on that note, Commissioner Blake, you should have an email from Paige Wyron with requesting an e-signature, and that is for the prairie dog MOA that we've talked about. We're close. The Fish and Wildlife Service actually has it in their work plan to do a species status assessment, which is the first step towards a delisting proposal, which, again, I've emphasized this every time I've come. It'll take at least 5 years and probably more to get there, but this is the first step down that road. And so they are wanting to have that MOA signed by all of the partners before they go down that road. And so we have Forest Service and BLM, and we're starting to get the county signatures. So if you could find that email. If you can't find it, I'll have it sent again. But that should be waiting for you in your email. But so I'm happy to present the PILT payment. I also have some data here on the Watershed Restoration Initiative. Just to give you some highlights, again, that's a great partnership between the state and the counties and the federal agencies. All of this work that you see up above Parowan here along the front is a result of that. But statewide, we've done almost 150,000 acres, about 10,000 of which has been in Iron County. So they've it's been an active project here in Iron County, and we appreciate the help there. So with that, I'd be happy to answer any questions, and then I'll just give you hand over the PILT payment. So any questions for me?
No questions, but a comment from me. I just really appreciate you individually and all the work that has gone on as far as the prairie dogs over the years. When I first started, prairie dogs would occupy a fair amount of our meetings and was a real challenge for anyone trying to develop.
Well, some of your own staff, Reed and Mike deserve as much credit as we do. They've worked hard, and we appreciate that partnership. But I don't want to diminish the work that my staff's done as well. They've worked hard to try to make it work for the citizens of Iron County, and we're headed in a good direction. We've still got some work to do, but I'm pleased. And thank
It's
you
a good example of folks reaching out beyond their organization and trying to look for cooperative solutions. And I think ultimately a real challenging problem has been fairly well mitigated.
It's getting better, and I hope to finish it off before I'm done. So,
well, we appreciate you.
Yeah, thank you.
Yes, thanks.
Very much.
Okay. Were you able to find that email?
So it looks like it went to you.
I think I forwarded it back to you and said, "Hey, you're the chair now."
And then
I deflected to you, Mike.
I then clicked on it, and it said,
won't come up.
And it said that it had to refresh the link, and a new link has been sent to you.
Okay.
So
it's like a political football to
so
me.
if you could forward that back to me,
well, it may be formatted so it has to. Let me just have it resent and directly to you, Commissioner Blake. If you're the chair now,
That probably would be helpful.
Yeah.
Let's just scratch everything that's been done. I know that change just happened, so I'll talk to Paige and have her resend it, and you'll get a new one today. And if you could just jump on and put an e-signature on that,
absolutely.
I was more than happy to relinquish that responsibility to.
Yeah, I did, because I found it, and I clicked on it, and it said that it needed a link refresh, and so I said refresh the link, and it says a new link has been sent to Commissioner Cousins.
I'll take care of that. If you'd watch for it in your email,
yeah,
we'll get it taken care of.
Absolutely.
Okay. Thank you.
Thank you.
Great, thank you.
So, John left. I just wondered, just thinking of this woman, I can't remember her name, that spoke about the smells, Mrs. English. I wonder how hard it'd be for us to set up that other room for people like that, because I know there's a lot of people nowadays that have those sensitive things with smells. I wonder if we could, how hard it'd be to do just like we do sometimes, to do the overflow, so people like that could come and participate.
And a microphone in there. Probably that's something for Jared to
maybe
set
we
up.
could start doing that
IT.
for those kind of that don't have the technology at home to watch. Maybe we could think about that. So
yeah,
shouldn't be tough.
Okay.
All right. Item number 3. Discussion of possible permission to mine lead shot from Shot Zone, which is located on Iron County property, requested by Douglas Hanson with Cedar City Trap Club.
Thanks, Doug. Good. Appreciate it.
Thank you.
give one to John.
Douglas Hanson, representing the Cedar City Trap Club. As you know, the Trap Club's been in operation since 1978, and it's kind of in cooperation with the county and the city. The facility is on the city's property, but all of our shot lead goes over onto the county. And each year, or the last 4 or 5 years anyhow, we are throwing approximately 45,000 clay pigeons out of our club. And that amounts to about 1,800 rounds of trap and 5-stand, which each year about 4,000 pounds of lead goes over onto your guys' property. We have mined it. The last time it was mined was in 2012. Before that, it was 2006. We'd like to mine it earlier than that, but it's a problem getting somebody to come in and mine it. And how we mine it, or how they mine it, we don't do it, they do it. They strip about the first 4 inches of topsoil off, and then they run it through a trommel and blowers, and that separates the dirt from the shot, and then they gather shot, and then they sell it. Part of it goes to them for doing it, and then some goes back to the club for improvements and things like that. Like I say, we did this in 2012 was the last time, and we've been trying to get some guys to do it. They said there's approximately 36,000 pounds of lead out there. So
Wow.
We want to get it before you guys start crushing any more too.
Yeah.
Because your pile that you put up there last year from the crush, that took, I mean, it covered some of the lead, not much, but
so it goes clear to that pile.
It goes clear to that pile. You can kind of see where that gray spot is on that picture I hand out there. That is where I'm going to say 80% of it goes, and so it's quite a ways from that pile. But we did go in after we mined it, leveled the ground back out, and seeded it. So there's grass out there now, and if you go out there any day, there's probably about 10, 12 head of deer out there and eating on it every
Nice.
day.
Eating the lead.
Well, no, they're eating the grass on it. But it's kind of interesting. I took Justin out there and showed him the ant beds are made of lead, not rock.
Oh,
really?
wow.
I mean,
That's
they make
interesting.
them
That's
lead.
interesting.
So it's interesting, yeah. So we're just asking your permission. We have a company that would like to come in and do that in April or May. And we'd like to have it done before the summer games because that's one of our biggest venues. So,
Yeah.
but we have to get your permission to do it.
So after they grub it, they do reseed it, so
Yeah,
we don't have
do
the
reseed
dust.
it, yep. Disc it down and
Yeah, you don't want the dust blowing back at you either. So,
and we don't want it going over towards Bulldog Road either. So.
yeah.
How much is in the Forest Service property next door? Is there much over there?
Oh, there's some that goes over there a little bit, but not much.
Mostly the county, huh?
It mainly hits right where that gray spot is. Yeah, we've kind of developed so when you shoot it, it goes in that area. But anyhow, that's what we're requesting is your permission to do that.
I'll make a
We
motion.
don't go through the county shed or anything. We'll go on the west side. There's a trail that goes back there, and so we don't want to interrupt anything with the county.
Okay. I would move to give permission to mine lead shot from Shot Zone, which is located on the county property, Cedar City Trap Club.
Second.
Moved and seconded. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Thank you.
Mine away. Item number 4, introduction from new artistic director with the Utah Shakespeare Festival and Group. Welcome, John D'Antonio, Michael Barr, and Don Jersey.
Welcome. We have 3 purposes. We're here to say thank you. We are really grateful for the support that we receive from Iron County. The Shakespeare Festival loves being here in the county. We're here to also tell you that there's been a change in leadership. Many of you already know that. I've been with the organization for the past 25 years as the education director. I'm now the executive managing director, and I am thrilled that we have a new artistic director, and we wanted you to get a chance to meet him. And we also want to just kind of share a little bit about the success. So I've got John D'Antonio, who's going to introduce himself and tell you a little bit about our season. And then after that, Don Jersey, who's going to tell you about the success that we are grateful for. So this is John.
Hey everyone, John D'Antonio. Great to meet you all. Just wanted to do a quick introduction, tell you a little bit about the season. My family, we just moved here 3 months ago. Hello, neighbor. Good to see you. We got a house in the Cedar Hills neighborhood. Just feel incredibly fortunate to be here. No, I'm also stepping into very large shoes in this position, and it's an honor. It's an absolute honor. We have 3 kids under the age of 6, so life is a bit wild right now, but we're loving it. We're absolutely loving it. We come from Creede, Colorado. That's where we've been the last decade. Just to give you a little bit about that, it's a rural, remote location located at 9,000 feet elevation in the San Juan Mountains of Colorado. We're one of the few people coming down in elevation to Cedar City, but it's an incredible place. To give you an idea how remote, the nearest Walmart's an hour away. But so for decades, silver mining was the big economic driver there. Then back in the 60s, several of the mines had closed. The price of silver was going down. And the Junior Chamber of Commerce said, hey, what if we turn this old movie house into a theater? They sent letters out to 20 universities across the Southwest, and they heard back from one, University of Kansas, who said, yeah, we'll come out and we'll start a theater for you guys. And so 58 years later, the arts is the main economic driver of that little town. In the winter, 400 people live there, but then in the summer it explodes with tourism and whatnot. So I've been running that theater for the last many years, and there I've learned the importance of arts and live storytelling, and that every single person should have access to great live storytelling. I've also learned, though, that it takes a village. And so I want to thank you all for the support that you've given to the Utah Shakespeare Festival. I know it's meant a lot, and I appreciate all the support going forward and whatnot. Also wanted to just quickly tell you about the season. I hope you all can make it out. I hope you can go rep, as I like to see all 7 shows. First in the Shakespeare world, we've got Much Ado About Nothing. Shakespeare literally invented the romantic comedy with this play. It is such a lovely show. I hope you'll make it out for that. The Taming of the Shrew, The Battle of the Sexes, that hilarious, wonderful and heartfelt show will be on our Engelstad stage. The Winter's Tale, beautiful, beautiful drama. It's actually my favorite Shakespeare play, as one of the most beautiful moments in the history of live theater, in my opinion. And then Henry VIII, which we haven't done for over 25 years, since the mid-90s. So all of you who have your Shakespeare passport and you're getting your stamp to complete the canon, this is your chance. So I hope you make it out for that. In the non-Shakespeare world, we've got The Mountaintop, a beautiful drama about Martin Luther King Jr., just a few last week, an important day. It's about the last day of his life, set in the Lorraine Motel. He gets a visit from a mysterious character. I'll leave it at that, but it's an absolutely beautiful play. Then Silent Sky by Lauren Gunderson. It's set in the early 1900s, Harvard University, about some unsung heroes, these women who mapped the skies around that time, and it celebrates their incredible work. And then finally, The 39 Steps. Some of you might have seen it back in 2010 or 2012. Hilarious take on Alfred Hitchcock's beloved movie, but told by 4 actors. And so it's an absolute romp. So much fun. I hope you can make it out. If there's anybody here who's ever intimidated by Shakespeare, I'll tell you there's nothing to be afraid of. Come and talk to me. It's for absolutely everyone. But we also have those plays that could be the stepping stones in as well. So I hope you all can make it out this summer, and thank you for all the support. Great to meet you. Now throwing it to Don Jersey.
Thank you, Commissioners. It's good to see you all today. The last time we talked, I forgot to add that I picked up my marriage license from this building, so it's good to be back in it again, because I lost the last one.
Oh.
I just want to say thank you. You've been behind us from our inception. You were there for us during COVID, as you were many others. The TRCC fund and the TRTT fund is like plasma to us, and we're grateful for it. We want to make sure you understand that we're profoundly grateful for the support we get from the community. And now we ask this of you. We ask you to tell everybody that tickets are half off for Iron County residents. They're 50% off. You can call the day of the show. You could even get a nice premier seat. We've opened all the barriers to entry. All you got to do is make a phone call, and it's basically buy one, get one. And if there's a way that we can express that and get that message out through the county somehow, because last year our attendance from Cedar City was up for the first time in 5 years.
That's amazing.
That's why we're here to say thank you. It was really beautiful to see. And having Michael Barr here did not hurt that at all, as you all all well know. But we just want to say thanks and let us know how we can better get this message out to our residents to come see some theater, because we know you all need it. And I handed you a pen, that Believe pen. That was the campaign we launched last year. So why don't you come with us and believe in the power of what the Utah Shakespeare Festival can do for Iron County. And with that, if there's any questions for us, if not, thank you so much for your time.
Appreciate it.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
I just want to make a comment before you guys run away. I really want to thank you guys, your organization. This is what people I guarantee people don't know this behind the scenes. We work together. So part of my responsibilities on the commission are economic development and tourism, or two of my responsibilities. And when we're talking tourism and economic development, those absolutely mesh and entwine with the Utah Shakespeare Festival. I'm also on the airport board. The commission's a many hat thing. Don especially, he's a nerd.
High praise.
High praise.
There we go.
Because Don does things statistically and mathematically. Like I barely got through college. My last class was basic statistics, and it near killed me. So Don comes in with these things. But the cool thing about it is the statistic and the analysis that the Shakespeare Festival does, we're using that with the Home Builders Association. We're using that with the airport board. We're using that with economic development. I tote Don around with me to all of these different entities and meetings, and then in turn, I tote those guys to Shakespeare. And the things that we've been able to accomplish, not only outside of the arts, but especially economic development and tourism, are greatly because of the relationship that we have with Shakespeare. It's been a real pleasure. I love the fact that Michael is the guy. This is wonderful. John, really glad to meet you. I'm sure that we'll cross paths, because we really, I just really can't say how important it is the relationships that we've built between all these entities who share data and share.
That's what it's about. That's actually why we're here.
Yeah,
Because
we love building community with you all, and that's what we do, and we do it together. So we're grateful.
There's been so much building outside of the Shakespeare community. I mean, we really.
Yeah, 30-second story.
It's been great.
I know there are people in this room who know this man. So Fred Adams, if you know Fred Adams. So I just got back from Atlanta. So we're out there at Shakespeare Theater Association. We went out there. 124 Shakespeare companies out there, of which we were one of the largest. So I know that's bizarre, that Cedar City, Utah, you think that? This organization was started 35 years ago by a guy from Iron County who's buried in the cemetery up there, and that was Fred Adams. So this little tiny town started this organization, which is now meeting in Atlanta. Next year they're meeting in San Francisco. Came from there. So all roads don't lead to Rome. They lead to Iron County. And we appreciate the collaboration. We appreciate that, and thank you for the time.
Thank you.
I know, we really appreciate you guys. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, y'all.
All right. Item number 5, discussion and possible approval of proposed county code amendments, ordinance 24-1, water priority requirement, subdivision procedures and land use application, noticing requirement updates to titles 15, 16, and 17, Iron County Code, in compliance with state code changes. This is continued from our meeting and public hearing held January 8th. Read, or I guess, there's been so many people involved, I'm not sure who to turn the time over to, but turn the time over to Reed Erickson.
Privilege to continue the love that we just experienced onto this item. I know that everyone feels the same way, so that's good to feel.
Yeah.
This ordinance really encapsulates 4 different topics, items, and so let me break it down. And we had the public hearing last time, and I'm sure you'll continue to take comments, but Title 15, 16, and 17 all deal with components of this ordinance, and there's really 2 things in Title 15 that are a little different. So Title 15 deals with the water issue that we've been talking about, because that's where the changes for individuals who want a building permit, that's where this section is housed in the ordinance. And so we had made modifications to that in 2022 with the ordinance that required the 50-year water right, et cetera, that you're all familiar with. So that's one of the changes that is incorporated into this amendment. The other one in Title 15 is the addition to having the land use disturbance permit requirement, which is essentially an opportunity to make sure that everybody knows what permits they need before they start digging. Before they disturb the land, then they can come in and get a permit that allows them to review all of the steps that may require additional things, whether they need a building permit, a subdivision, a water flood permit, a prairie dog clearance. Right now in Iron County, anyone before they disturb any land should get prairie dog clearance. We don't have a permit requirement that says that, and so the first time we normally see someone is when they come in for a building permit or come in for a subdivision and they've already done their test pits and they should have had prairie dog clearance before they did that, et cetera, et cetera. And so this is an opportunity to try to address that. We know that there are concerns with additional permits. The fee for this is proposed at $35, but the idea is that would be applied to any subsequent permit that they would need, whether it be a subdivision or a building permit or an encroachment permit or anything else. So it really doesn't cost them anything additional than what they would pay when they go to their subsequent phase. That's the 2 components of Title 15. Title 16 is the subdivision ordinance that we're making amendments to be in compliance with state code. Revisions last year in the legislative session requires the county to appoint an administrative land use authority, which has the authority to approve subdivisions, single family, 2-family, and townhome subdivisions that is not the legislative body. not the county commission, so that it's more of a streamlined process. And so Title 16 incorporates all of those changes, as well as changes that have to do with notification. The legislature also streamlined the process for notification requirements for public hearings and public meetings in relation to land use approvals. And what they call a Class A and a Class B notice, we also used a nomenclature and continued with a Class C, D, and E notice, so that it applies to all of our land use approvals. And so those are incorporated into the subdivision section. Title 17 is the provisions of the zoning code that incorporate notification as well. So those are the changes in Title 15, 16, and 17. We can talk about those individually in each of those areas and any of the changes. I appreciate the comments that we've had so far, and we've made some modifications to the ordinance. It's a little bit cumbersome to pull up the whole ordinance here, but I do have them available. If you want to go to any specific section and look at them, I can pull them up. I emailed them out and highlighted in yellow the sections that I hadn't changed. I had incorporated a lot of the other changes that were suggested. So one of those changes really had to do with whether or not the Planning Commission should hold a public hearing for conditional use permit. And whether that was necessary. It's not required by state law. We've had it in the county in the past, and the Planning Commission felt that it was an important component of that review, and that's why they recommended it that way, but it's not required to be that way. So those are really the main things. I can continue individually and talk about each of the pieces, but I'd rather respond to the questions that you have.
So on 15, I called the office, and I was slammed last week, but I called and talked to Rich, and I understood this as a lot of this was the land disturbance thing, that he was kind of pushing that. You guys had met, and I expressed my concern about that. I don't know if he talked to you about it. Did he talk to you about my concern?
Yeah, previously last week.
Because I didn't like it. I mean, if you want me to call you, Reed, and buy a permit to put a fence on my property or dig a trench, I'm not going to buy a permit from you. I'll just tell you that right now. So
as long as you call first and get a prairie dog clearance, I'm not going to argue.
I'm probably not going to do that either. So
well,
so it's my property. I know I don't have prairie dogs on it, and I'm not going to get it. So I hope you remove that from this. I didn't have time to look at all of your attachments you resent, but where are we at with that? I think it's very overbearing.
It's all highlighted in yellow in Title 15 as part of the first part.
I would like that, as I'm one vote, but I would like that removed.
Well, that's what it's there for, is to make people aware that prairie dog clearance is, if they're in a mine, and most places have such a thing. They have grading permits. They have other things that require a permit before people go and dig and do anything, so that they know what permits are required.
If you're doing a subdivision or a development and you're grubbing a big piece of property, I can see the prairie dog clearance. But for my own lot that I own an acre or two or wherever, and I want to dig a trench or I want to put a fence on it, I'm not going to get a permit for prairie dogs, and I'm not going to get a permit from the county. So I was very clear with Rich when I called him last week, and I hope that was communicated to you.
Kevin were still here to explain what the ramifications are.
What was that?
I wish Kevin were still here to explain the ramifications of not getting prairie dog clearance.
Well, I know there's not prairie dogs on my lot, and I'm not going to get one. So if I knew there's prairie dogs on a property that I was going to develop, that's another point. So
and how do we police that?
I am the master permit holder for the general conservation plan that requires anyone before they disturb ground in Iron County to get prairie dog clearance. They don't have to get a prairie dog permit. If we look on the map and it's in an area that it isn't mapped as prairie dog habitat, then they don't need anything. They can just, they have a letter that we sign that says you're not in prairie dog habitat, and they can use that to get a building permit or anything subsequent that requires that. So I hope that we can not confuse this permit with the requirement to call first and get prairie dog clearance before you dig.
Right.
Before
you dig where?
It's
are
kind
we
of
talking
like
development?
811.
Are we talking
you
about
want to dig and dig for a fence before you call 811? No. You want to get clearance, and those are the things. It's just a reminder of those things to keep people from creating more problem for themselves than they would have to.
But we've added a lot of regulation, and I don't think people in the county, Rich or Reed, are going to, at least from my point of view, are going to want to call and get a permit to do anything on their own property. I just don't think that's going to happen, and I won't vote for it.
No.
So please, I don't know where the other two feel, but I
that's what is in Title 15, that and the water stuff, and so I'm just explaining what's in the ordinance as it's drafted and what was recommended from the Planning Commission. Okay.
What boil down? If you boiled it, where are we with the water as far as the 50-year? Just
this language in the yellow, or excuse me, in the gray at the bottom is a condensed version of all of the highlight cross-off stuff. That it reads simply that when they get a building permit, they need a minimum of 1 EDU, equivalent residential unit, as determined and provided by the Utah Division of Water Rights Office. A recorded document must accompany the evidence of water right that states 1, the date of the water right, 2, reference to the applicable groundwater management plan, and 3, that the property owners acknowledge the state engineer's intent to regulate said water rights based on priority dates, regardless of use. That's what it states. It took out the 50-year requirement. It took out, the language before we had 1 acre foot, and there was some confusion with that on the way that water rights deals with that, and so those are the changes that were made. And Sam and I met on Thursday afternoon and went through and modified this according to those changes and the things that had gone back and forth and what we felt was the direction that we had based on where we are today.
Reed, could you elaborate on the difference between an acre foot and an EDU, kind of what that means?
Yeah, well, Nathan is here, can do that a lot better than I can, but it's their determination that that's enough water to sustain the use requirements for 1 residential unit, indoor use only. Part of the reason that we had previously 1 acre foot is because we know that most people in the county don't just have indoor use. They have a garden and they have a lawn and they have, they wash their car in the driveway, and there's other water that gets used outside besides what is in for the inside use. But that's really not our area to administer in terms of determining how much water for a particular use, and so the state engineer can do that. They can look at a number of different things that relate to whether the water is a viable water right or not, and so we've just changed our language in the ordinance to say as long as the state water division of water rights says there's enough water for 1 residential equivalent for a building permit for 1 residence, then that's sufficient for us. Other questions?
And that refers back to this document that Sam and several put together.
Yeah, the recording document.
Recording.
Yeah, that's what this says would be that they would record, is that's the draft that Sam put together that reflects that. This is just the ordinance and the language in the ordinance that requires that.
So there was conflicts in the different basins. So now with this document, there wouldn't be that because we took the 50-year off so that they could
the 50-year
in any
wasn't
of
a conflict.
Which one was it?
Basins.
It was conflict.
Well, the difference was it just says for 50 years for whatever basin the water is in. So that it means that it's not in jeopardy of being curtailed for 50 years. It wasn't that the water right was 50 years old or older, and that's why we used the 50 years, is because regardless of what basin it's in, the water right is not in jeopardy of being curtailed for 50 years. Whether that's in the Escalante, it was a 1944 water right, whether it's in Parowan Valley with a 1952 water right, whether it's in Cedar City with a 1935 water right, that would vary for the 50 years depending on what basin it's in, and if we continue to get more groundwater management plans, or if there's not a groundwater management plan, then it doesn't matter because there's not one in it. So This section in Title 15 deals with specific building permits on existing lots, or wells that exist, or properties that exist on existing lots that are hooking up to a single well. For instance, if there are 4 properties out in Cedar Valley Estates or somewhere else that want to go together and drill a well and put their water rights in, this is the language that would regulate that. The language in Title 16 that deals with subdivisions still stays the same for 50-year requirement for any new development or any new subdivision. If they're bringing, a new subdivision and creating new lots, then that 50-year requirement is still in place. This simply deals with anything outside of a new subdivision on existing wells, new wells for existing lots. Up to 7 units, you can have 7 connections on a lot without it being a public water system. All of those relate to this section right here that removed the 50-year requirement.
And
did that answer your question?
On that water, I mean, the whole thing that brought up this water discussion, I believe, was, we passed, what was it, about a year ago, we passed the ordinance in 22, and we just basically wanted the county, we saw developments come in, and granted, most of the developments are in unincorporated hooked to the Conservancy District's water system, and they required 1935 and older water rights. And so we wanted, in case they did a private water system, we wanted them to be consistent with Iron County, or Enoch, Cedar City, and the Water District, Central Iron County Water Conservancy District. And so we passed that. We did not consider the unintended consequences of the one-off wells, so we're fixing that today.
Right.
And I've worked on this a lot. I felt like it was still a good thing to do some kind of a recording document. We've taken out some of the language called like a deed restriction or a curtailment. We've taken out that language and softened it a lot, where it's just called a notice of groundwater management plan. And back to Marilyn's question, this because we've gone through a groundwater management plan in the Cedar Basin, Parowan's just starting that process over here. And so this document, it's softened a lot. It basically just says, look, it lets people know that there could be a problem with their water is all. It just educates them. I would like to say that I've talked to a lot of people about this. I know some realtors are really concerned about it. Others are not. I've talked to some realtors that think it's a good idea. I also talked to a big well driller last week that said, I spend half of my time, Jay's here, and I don't know what his experience is, but the well driller I talked to, and he drills a lot of wells, he said, I spent half of my day every day fielding calls from people that just moved into Iron County and bought newer water rights and didn't understand what they bought. And they find out that water's not good for a long, long time, and they're spending a lot of money to drill a well. And he spends a lot of time educating them, and they're furious. And so I think another mechanism that just, and I know the realtors have made the argument that, hey, we by law are required to disclose those things, which is great, and for those that do, that's awesome. But I think but one point that's been brought up is not everybody goes through a realtor. Let's say and we're fixing this. So let's say a couple, they're in their elder years and they've got a water right that's good for 15 years before the first cut, and they want to build a home and they want to use that water right till they're gone, and that's fair. I agree with that. But my concern is the second buyer when the estate takes that property over and goes to sell that property, that when they do a title search, that a document comes up and warns them, say, hey, there could be an issue, refer back to the groundwater or the state, water plan, and see where you're at with this. And I think that's a good exercise to educate the public, because this is becoming a big problem in Iron County. I've been involved with this for 12 years, and I think the more education we can do, and like I said, the words deed restriction, the curtailment, those maybe a little more harsher, alarming words have been removed, where it's just a notice of groundwater management plan. It just says, hey, refer back to the state to see where you're at with this.
And we appreciate the state's efforts as well to try to notify people. That is the purpose of it, and what we did a year ago is simply to try to make sure that people are aware of their investment and that they don't build a $500,000 home on a water right that could be curtailed in 11 years. That's when the first cut could occur. And a lot of people say, well, it won't. You know, they're not going to take people's water rights away. And all we can do is go on what the state has adopted. It is within their authority to do. We don't know what's going to happen, but we felt a responsibility to make sure that people are aware of this potential, and that's a lot of money to put out, like you say, for what the well drillers and a lot of people are trying to explain. Agree with
I'd
the
like
purpose
to
behind
talk
that.
about a couple of articles that I read over the weekend. There was some water taken away from a subdivision down in Maricopa County, Arizona, and they had built all these homes, and they were transporting their water from Scottsdale. Well, all of a sudden, this drought, they said, well, we're not going to give them any water rights anymore. So it's costing them a lot more because they're having to haul it from another place. Well, then the governor got involved. The governor said, we will take care of these people. So because they're not taking care of their own water, now all of us have to take care of their water. So it is a problem. We feel like it's something that we need to make people aware of, and we don't want that to happen here, where the governor has to step in and say, you know, we've got to give people water, but the rest of you are going to fund that. I mean, that's not fair to the rest of us if we have good water rights and you don't. But yet on the other hand, we'd like to let you use those water rights that are still good. And I've had people say, well, you're taking the value away from them. We didn't take the value away from them. The groundwater management plan did that. As county commissioners, we did not do that. So, you know, in looking out into the future, we have to look at if they were taken away, that you know, the rest of us shouldn't be on the hook for you not taking care of what you needed to take care of. That's just my feeling.
Along those same lines, I was involved. I was on the groundwater management plan committee for 4 years and attended a meeting. You were on there too, and we every month we had a meeting for 4 years. And Kent Jones, our state water engineer at the time, one of the nicest men I've ever met, and he was extremely workable. He just said, look, guys, I have to be the bad guy. By law, I have to come to these basins and make sure they're stable with water, that you can't run out. And Mother Nature's giving you 21,000 acre feet, and you're taking out 28. And if that's a bank...
And there's 50,000 allocated.
Yes, 50,000 that are on the books. Okay. And that's one thing the Parowan Valley has an advantage over us. They're probably overdrawing more than we are, but at least they're all being used. We still have 20 or 22,000 that are still available to use, and so we're in real trouble. And he said, look, if here's the plan. We pushed back as hard as we could as a board. You remember that?
Oh yeah.
We got those curtailments pushed way back, but he just said, if you guys can recharge, and that's why we've been working so hard for so long on our recharge projects. We recharged 1.8 billion gallons of water last year. We had a terrific year. I hope this year catches up and we have a good year this year, but it was, and he said, look, if you guys can stabilize your aquifer with the steps you take, we'll readjust. We're flexible. But I think the main crux of this argument is, it's not, it's not if they're going to do it, they can do it if they have to. And
there is a limited amount of water.
Yes. And those newer water rights are impairing on the older water rights. It's a property rights issue, both sides, and so the other thing where I've been real stubborn on this agreement, and all I've ever wanted is mainly a notice, and I think we've dumbed this down to where it's not as what the language has been removed, but I've wanted to. We get it's just amazing with government how much we get sued, and when and if the state ever starts taking water rights away, I can see lawsuits flying all over the place. And it's our job as commissioners to protect the county and protect the taxpayers of the county. And I don't want somebody to come into the county and say, look, you guys knew that my water was only good for 15 or 20 more years. Why did you give me a building permit? We're suing you. And to me, this notice right here, filed with the deed at the time of a building permit, whether they do it or we do it or whoever does it, gives the county a lot of protection liability-wise, in my opinion. We have some attorneys in the room, but Sam's been very involved in this, but I think that gives the county some real protection, in my opinion.
Any other questions about any other sections of the ordinance that you want to discuss?
So back to 15.
Okay.
This is a big document. This is a lot of moving parts. What's the process today, John? I think the ground disturbance is way over the top. I want that pared back to where it maybe was. I don't want to require people to. I know agriculture is exempted, and that's great.
But only to 18 inches. Is
It's-
that right?
That's based on
So if you do a water line, you have to go 3 feet or else it'll freeze.
Right.
So that is an
Then you
issue
would need
for
to come in and
agriculture.
make sure you don't have a problem.
I'm opposed to that strongly.
Because that's under a different section that we've already adopted of the prairie dog clearance. Under the 4D rule for prairie dogs, the only exemption for agriculture is if they don't dig any deeper than 18 inches.
I can look at my property and see there's prairie dogs on it. I don't need to. I want that removed, and I don't know if I need to make a motion to remove that language.
And I'm going to refer to Sam only because I understood that this agenda item was limited in scope based on the actions taken by the Planning Commission. Is that correct?
Yes and no. Yes, in the
We
sense
can
that
always change
They're an
that.
advisory board, but we don't
accept, modify,
You
or
can modify that.
Well, I know, but we last time we had it on and they couldn't take action because of the timing of what had happened. If that's the case, then I would say no. If not, then yeah. I don't know what kind of. I wasn't involved with the noticing. Yes.
A document I'll show you on here. Yeah, if the commission believes that they don't want to adopt that section of Title 15, it's highlighted here in yellow. We would just remove that. So it's Chapter 1502, which was a new section that was added to Title 15, ground disturbance permits, outlined in yellow. If the commission doesn't believe that that's warranted and wants to remove that section, that 1502 from this section, they can certainly do that.
Yep.
Yeah, that's
And
absolutely
that would-
within their ability. It was simply recommended from the Planning Commission to be adopted this way, but they can adopt it with modifications and make those modifications and remove that section. That's no problem.
And we appreciate our planning commission and the recommendations they give us, but this is one that I'm adamantly against.
Okay, let me rephrase my concern. Do we feel like the notice that was made for this was sufficient to do what Paul is asking?
Yes.
I don't have an answer. Okay.
Yes, absolutely, because
Okay.
it was advertised for this meeting and for the prior meeting for the public hearing for titles 15, 16, and 17, the changes that would have been discussed in those titles. So absolutely.
So the scope was not just limited to the 50-year and the building permit part. Okay.
No, it
That was the part I wasn't
all of the
unsure of.
modifications
Yeah.
that we've been considering in Title 15, 16, and 17.
So I've got a question. What are what are the ramifications with prairie dog as far as the state requirement, the state?
This was simply an attempt to try to help make sure people knew that they needed to get prairie dog clearance. That's still the case. It was the case before. We need to educate them. We've been to, home builders and realtors and trying to make sure that everybody knows that. This is just an attempt to make sure that we have an opportunity to tell people when they're going to do anything on their land, they need prairie dog clearance first to make sure that they don't have a conflict there with disturbing habitat.
Okay.
Is there, how much peril is there? I mean, if you have somebody who's like, hey, I'm not going to do that. I mean, do we
It's up to them. It's up to the individual.
But what I'm asking though is there a peril under the? I guess we're still under an
You
HCP.
commented earlier about you appreciate what Kevin's done and
Yeah,
where we're at. Where we're at is because
Right.
of this general conservation plan that we have that says no one will disturb ground before they get prairie dog clearance. We have the ability to provide clearance, and we have the ability to mitigate if they have prairie dogs on their property, but that's with the cooperation of everybody saying, yes, we recognize that, we know they're here, we need to make sure that people take care of that so that they don't disturb occupied habitat, because if they disturb occupied habitat, then they are in violation of the Endangered Species Act and can be fined.
And we've been doing that. This is new though.
Yeah.
We've been doing that for years, and this is new stuff that is,
Now, this is just
way
an
over the top,
opportunity
in my
to
opinion.
educate. Make sure that
And I
they're
guess
aware of
to get to my point, is there a peril at the plan being endangered if someone?
Yes.
I mean, if we have enough people that are like, hey, we're just not going to follow that. I mean,
We'll go back to the 80s.
I'm not even trying to counter what Paul's saying.
Well,
I'm just worried about
the person may be charged.
Yeah.
No, it's up
not
to them.
the county.
Right, it's not the county. It's
Well, the county could be in jeopardy of losing their permit. Our permit from the U.S. Fish and Wildlife Service is there to authorize us to give people permission to build and mitigate without having to do their own mitigation plan and their own habitat conservation plan with the U.S. Fish and Wildlife Service.
And if we've been doing that for a permit to build, then that's fine. We've been
Yeah.
doing that. But this is new. This is if I already have a home and I want to go out in my backyard and dig a water line from point A to point B, and I can see there's no prairie dogs, I don't want to have to come to the county and get a permit to do that, Reed. And I will not.
I understand what you're saying. I'm just saying the general conservation plan still requires that you make sure that there's not prairie dogs on that.
And I can see that there's prairie dogs or not.
And you won't get your permit money back if you're not getting a building permit, right? I mean, if you pay the $35
If there's no other subsequent
and there's
permit
no other
required.
yeah.
But you don't have to charge a fee if you don't feel like that's appropriate either. You know, if they're not going to get any other permit, then there's no fee. It's not hard to fix. But it's up to you.
So I don't know where we're at with this process, but I would make a motion, Mr. Chair, that we remove this new section out of this document.
Chapter 1502.
And just go
Out of
back,
Title
and just go
15.
back 1502 and just go back to the way we used to do it. When somebody comes in for a development or to build a home, they have to get a prairie dog clearance for that process. But after the home is built and you have your property, I think it's way overbearing. So.
Okay.
You can make
Can
a
I clarify?
motion. Oh,
1502 is all of that under 1502, or is it a certain paragraph?
No.
So if I just have 15.02,
Section 1 of this ordinance, Title 15, Chapter 15.
Section 1, Title 1502.
Yep.
Thank you.
Yep. The other provisions, 1504, all stays in place. Everything subsequent to that. 1502 was the new section we added in for the ground disturbance permit. They want to remove that. It won't affect the rest of it.
Okay.
And I'll make those changes and send you a new.
We'll get and then we can get the signatures. Okay.
Before we go to a motion, if there's other questions, if there's any public comment.
yeah,
You want to
with
do
the
that?
water
I didn't know what
things.
process
Yeah,
we're
let's-
in here, but yeah, absolutely.
Then we,
Right.
any public comment, and then to handle everything.
Richard.
Handle everything at the end in one motion.
That also included a floodway provision, meaning that if a home or subdivision or a ground disturbance was going to affect a floodway, which
floodway,
a floodway,
like the drainage.
Would you speak into the mic?
I'm sorry.
Yeah, it's okay.
There we go. A little better. A floodway. A floodway affects people around you. When you build up or remove with a ground disturbance, you are in fact displacing water that traditionally goes there to another location. So this
You
was
have
also, I
other
believe, in that
mechanisms,
ordinance.
though.
Am I correct, Reed?
Is there other? Surely there's other mechanisms that you've been using for that type of a issue. If you don't keep all of your water on your own property.
There's not been a clear avenue for that. people have been able to just go out and modify the floodway.
Is there no middle ground? I mean, if I want to put a trench in for a water line, am I affecting
Well, and that's
floodway versus?
no, I'm not talking about that.
Well, I know, but if that's under the ground disturbance.
It was just in the ground disturbance. It was in this new.
Okay.
It included several provisions, kind of to update and catch us up with both state and federal regulation. Yep.
All right. Come on up. State your name for the record. And
Janelle Adams, Cedar City, Utah. My concern is with this notice of groundwater management plan. Is there anything available for people to then remove it from the record once it's recorded? Because from underwriter standpoint, if that's always going to show up on a title search, what can that property owner do about that?
It's my understanding that if I have and I did this very thing, I had a property that in fact, it had a newer water right. It was a rental that I purchased back probably 10 years ago, and it had a newer water right. And I knew I needed at least a 1934. So when I found some that were being sold, I bought it about 5 years. I think it was an 1890 something water right, and I held on to it because I had that other right in the well. And I knew I'd need that older right to be okay, so I went out and bought one.
Mm-hmm.
And my understanding is that if this was in place then, and I had that newer right filed with that property, I can do it. I can amend that and file another one and say, "Hey, this has been updated to a older water right." And so an underwriter would look at that and say, "Oh, they had a newer water right. Now they've got the old one. We're good to go." That's my understanding.
I just think there needs to be a formal process stated in the amendment just to show what residents can do to make sure that gets done. Mm-hmm. Because when you're met with an underwriting problem, a challenge, there needs to be a way for them to overcome that challenge. And like you said, that's, in my mind, that works as well. Mm-hmm. But I think our residents need to have an idea of how to move forward from this notice of groundwater management plan. So that's just a statement.
Thank you. Mm-hmm. What's your take on that, Sam? Should we let them go first? And then?
Good morning, Commissioners. Tammy Vogt with Equity Real Estate. I have to say that I'm feeling a little relieved at the new language because it doesn't really have so much derogatory language about the water rights being junior and jeopardy and those kinds of things, which I think would really hurt lendability and homeowners down the road. I do have some concerns about it. Just thinking in terms of unintended consequences, which is how we're here today to begin with, is what does this mean long term and how is it going to be received? And I guess I have a couple questions about it, since it doesn't really state that this home, these water rights are junior and you may be in jeopardy down the road. It looks like it applies to any home that has water rights, regardless of what the date is. Because down at the bottom, you just fill in the date. So owner's water rights is 1860, and that gets recorded, even though it's not in jeopardy. It's 1934, and it's going to get recorded, even though 1934 isn't really as much of a concern. So I just wanted to verify that what you're doing with this is you're now putting this on every home that gets built.
My understanding
that
wasn't that. Is it, Sam? It's not every. Oh, it is every.
And so then the concern that was just voiced is like, okay, it's on there. How does this affect somebody's value, somebody's lendability, any title searches, anything like that down the road? And I don't know the answer to that. I'm just raising that as a question because the way that it's written is definitely more friendly, and I appreciate that. But I do have concerns at what does it mean?
Well, I think the language in this points it back to the water. Mr. Moses that's here, it points it back to them and says, hey, go back to the plan. And if they do go back to the plan, it clearly states that 1934 is the date where you're safe. That and older you're safe. So they can look at that plan and say, oh, they're good to go.
Okay, so it really is more information
Right.
at this point, which I think is good because I do think we need that level of education. But I do have concerns just long term of unintended consequences of having this recorded, even if it isn't necessarily something bad about the property right date. The other question that I still have too is because water rights are free floating real estate and they attach to the well, that those can move about, and so. You know, there's a little bit of gray area, I think, going forward in the future if people do move their water rights around or upgrade their water rights to older water rights. It doesn't really make any difference whether this is still on there.
I don't think we can control all the variables, but we can at least from here going forward. This is becoming a real issue in our basin, and we can at least notify those from here on out. Say, beware, you need to watch out.
And well, one of the things that I know that was probably discussed, I wasn't part of your meetings with the representatives from the Board of Realtors, but I have had conversations with them, and we had talked about a disclosure document because disclosures are part and parcel of what we do. Whether or not a disclosure that was mandated by the county for all real estate transactions would actually have the same effect and better, because it still has the education and notice because it's required for all transactions, whether you work with a realtor or not. You know, if you go get it recorded and that document's not there, that disclosure's not there, then you couldn't do it. And the only reason I bring that up is because this doesn't deal with any homes that are already built that have junior water rights or have any water rights that are under a water management plan, which I think the goal of this was to notify people that you're under a groundwater management plan. So, you know, does this produce consequences for people down the road trying to sell properties or lend on properties that we don't really know or understand yet? And it still doesn't address the problem that there are a number of homes out there built with water rights that may or may not be in jeopardy. And so would a mandated disclosure for all real estate transactions better do what we're trying to do? Because it would require everybody that had water rights to have that document as part of their closing transaction.
I don't know what the others think, but I think it's above our pay grade to tell the realtors how to do their business.
But we kind of feel like that's what you're doing anyway, you know? I mean,
we're in the business, I explained my position, we're in the business of issuing building permits.
Mm-hmm.
And I believe this document moving forward, because this is a big problem, protects the county.
Mm-hmm.
And moving forward, like I said, if we issue a building permit to somebody and their water right's going to be, curtailed in 20 years or whatever, and it happens. I mean, I've been in public service for 13 years, and people come in and sue us for the craziest things. You should have told me. Well, you didn't do this. You didn't do that. And then we're in a lot of lawsuits.
Yeah.
And I see this protecting us as a county.
And I feel like the county has, the ability to require certain things to happen with real estate transactions, because the county recorder's office is the one who records transactions when they change ownership, that if there was a requirement as part of a transfer of ownership that required this disclosure, how come the county couldn't do that?
Is that disclosure recorded with the deed or not? Or is it sitting in some file somewhere where nobody will ever see it?
Just a disclosure.
Yeah.
That's
Some people
required.
don't use realtors too.
No, I'm saying with all transactions, they still have to get recorded. If they change ownership, it still goes through the county. So if there's a mandated disclosure for all real estate transactions, whether you go through a realtor or not, that's why I'm saying it wouldn't be telling the realtors what to do.
It'd have to be recorded too.
It would be something that, would be required for all real estate transactions. And I'm just trying to present a solution.
So, Tammy, have you thought through how that might look? I'm just trying to, in my mind, think of how that might.
I know that people who work with realtors, we have a set of forms that are required by the state that we use. So I don't know why the county couldn't also have a required form that's required for our county. Our board came up with our own water due diligence, and that's unique to our board that we required, that we have a due diligence checklist for water rights specifically. But I don't know exactly how it would work.
No, that realtors are regulated by DOPL, and that's, again, above the county's pay grade. That's a state thing.
Mm-hmm. But
I'm just trying to think of mechanics, how it would even work,
And for people that don't have a realtor, they still are, if they go to a title company and the title company knows that document needs to be present as part of the transaction.
Right.
And then it goes to the county, and if the county knows that document is required in order to be recorded, the deed to be recorded, that disclosure needs to be present. I'm just wondering if that isn't a way to get everybody where this is only going forward, homes that are built now forward. So
But is that document you're talking about, would it be recorded with a deed?
I don't know if it would need to be recorded with a deed.
In my opinion, it would have to be. So when somebody does a title search,
For the next one.
they know what's going on, because people don't know. People don't know until it affects their pocketbooks. They don't pay attention, most of them. We've
But
had
if it
meetings
was-
after meetings after meetings, and very few come to them, just because they're busy. Everybody has busy lives, and they don't pay attention until it really affects their pocketbook. And so this is a document that would be filed that would show up on a title search. And I've heard the argument, well, we're hurting those that are maybe low income and can barely, it may go to underwriting and they may deny them this loan. My argument, it goes the other way too. Let's say a young couple buys that house from the estate. They don't go through realtor. They're not notified. They buy that. They barely qualify. They're given a loan on that home, and then a year later they find out they've got to buy a $20,000 water right to satisfy the needs of that property they just invested $500,000 in, and they're in trouble. And I think it's better to educate them up front than have them find out later.
I agree with that, and I think that what I'm proposing would actually have more recognition in the mind of a buyer, because something that shows up on a title report, something that was recorded with the home when it was built, people don't always read their title reports. They don't read all the information that they get. But when they purchase, if they're required to sign something when they purchase, that's not hidden in paragraph 10, page 10 of the title report.
I think that's, along Johnson, I think that's a state issue. I think that'd be a legislative issue coming down to us. I don't know, Lowry could maybe, Mr. Snow could probably weigh in on that. I don't know that we have the authority to do that.
But you understand what I'm saying about this gets recorded one time and signed one time, and then they're supposed to tell the next person, just because it shows up in the title report. People don't read those title reports, but they do read every paper that is handed to them when they buy a home, and they say, you have to sign this because this is a disclosure. So whether they work with a realtor or not, So that's my 2 cents about it. I think that this is a huge improvement from where we originally were, and I'm glad to see that we're coming there, getting close to a solution. But I still think that there could be some unintended consequences, and I don't know that it accomplishes everything you wanted it to do. So.
Well, I hope that you'll still, your real estate people will still use that disclosure that you have been doing. Education is a huge part of this, and I hope you still will continue that. This is just another thing that we feel like would protect the county.
Yeah, absolutely.
And I appreciate that. I think that's a valid. I think that's a valid solution. I hope moving forward. I don't know that we can. I don't know we have the silver bullet to fix everything. This is going to be an ongoing conversation. I appreciate you. We've talked a bunch of times. I appreciate your involvement and coming forward with solutions. It's been super helpful. And I think this is an ongoing thing. We'll still work together. So I appreciate it. Yes, ma'am. Hello.
Serena Close, Equity Real Estate. I keep hearing that we can't do anything. It's the state's problem. But yet, we have people that are being denied building permits that are coming from Iron County Commission. If you guys are going to be putting things over to the state.
And we're fixing that, man.
We're fixing that. That's what we're fixing.
That's what we're doing.
That's what we're doing now.
You'll get
this
a
will not
building
stop
permit.
anybody from getting a building
It'll
permit.
just be
all I needed to make sure that I
This
understood.
fixes that unintended consequence that happened when we were thinking more of what we were worried about is a developer coming in, buying a lot of this newer water rights. It's plenty and cheap, and doing a big development and selling the lots to unsuspecting buyers and running off with the money. That's what we were thinking of when we passed that that ordinance.
Right.
We didn't think about the one-offs, and so that's what we're doing is fixing that.
Okay, then I'm good.
Cal?
Okay, Cal Robinson. So talking about what gets recorded in the county and about people signing that they've seen this document. They do sign a paper with us that says your owner's policy is going to be this, subject to these exceptions. Have you read that? So they've got a sign saying they know that these exceptions are going to be in their title policy, which this is going to be one of them.
Mm-hmm.
So
How do the exceptions get noted at
whether
closing?
they read it or not, that's
You
not
don't
my
know.
problem. It's-
But they sign it.
It's buyer beware.
Yep.
The state of Utah, right?
Yes.
Did you have a question?
Pertaining to the third comment back.
Tell us who you are, please.
Richard Wilson. Friday, I was looking at a water right in the southern part of the county, south of Cedar City. There are 17 homes that in 11 years their water right will be curtailed. They're on 53 water rights.
Wow. Do they,
What, and Rich,
do
back to
they
the
know?
discussion. Back to the discussion you and I had last week about this. I'm jumping back and forth, but jumping back to 15 because you're up.
No, on that, Commissioner Wood, I do not believe they know.
I've always believed that, to me, 15 is very overbearing, and most people won't even know they have to get a permit to go dig a hole in their backyard. Ain't happening, and so my feeling in public service is if we have an ordinance on the books we're not going to enforce or able to enforce, there's no way in the world Iron County is going to enforce this. There's no way we have the money or the manpower to enforce this new 15B, whatever it is. There's no way. And so it was like when I was on the Cedar City Council. We had an ordinance on the books that said you could only have 2 dogs. Okay? There was, and I'm just using this as an example, we never enforced that. I mean, you might have had somebody on the street that had 1 dog that drove everybody crazy. Somebody had 5 dogs, you didn't even know they had 5 dogs. And so we did not enforce that. It was enforced through a noise ordinance. It was another ordinance that was enforced, so we got rid of it. We didn't enforce it, so we got rid of it. Another one was dog licenses. How many in here licenses their pet? Maybe some of you. I never have. We didn't enforce it. We got rid of it. We got it off the books. And this 15B is one of those, in my opinion. We're going to pass this. If we did pass it, we don't have the money and manpower to enforce it, and it would just be another ordinance that's on the books that we don't enforce.
And I understand that. And in fact, I sometimes just keeping ourselves compliant is a nightmare. And that's why I'm worried more about the floodway, because that is an ordinance that is now being looked at by public safety, Utah Public Safety, and a condition of our accreditation with FEMA. It's not that we're looking to make things more difficult. It's a matter of maintaining our compliance, and it didn't come to our notice as a strong idea until they came down a month or 2 ago and were doing an audit. And they do ordinance audits, and we try to keep up with them just so that we allow the citizens of Iron County to be able to purchase that insurance if they want it. If we lose our accreditation, then unincorporated Iron County citizens can't purchase those things. That's all.
And I can see that, but I know we're potentially getting some road money through all the flooding we had last year through the winter. But we've had major catastrophes in this county in the last so many years, and FEMA hasn't done anything for us.
No, and I understand that, and George and I have both spoken to Utah Public Safety about that. I mean, some of the rules they have would never happen in Utah. One of those being first floor flooding to the ceiling. Right. If we had first floor flooding to the ceiling in Iron County, we're all in a lot of trouble. Right. but that's they've written a lot of rules for coastal areas, and it is not reflective of west of the Mississippi. We understand that. I just wanted to address the floodway and ground disturbance in a floodway, just so that we can.
And I get that, but I
Maybe
think
we could do something more specific.
Well, I
to
think
that.
we can come back with something.
That
Yeah,
I would be willing to look at that for sure.
Neighbor changes their landscape and floods their neighbor. I think they're going to have a
then
civil
that's-
lawsuit.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, I think that's going to happen naturally civilly, but
yeah. That's all.
Thanks.
Thank you, commissioners.
Jay Grimshaw. Water, what can I say? You know, when the state came up with this management plan, it had lots of unintended consequences, and of course we're here because of that today. Obviously, it's apparent to me that the county doesn't feel like it's your responsibility to police what the state has put in place that's going to be governed and controlled by them. Every time something like this happens, those of us who deal with water, I'm a drilling contractor, I'm a farmer, I own water, I own land. It has an impact on me personally, as well as those around me, that were unintended, because they want to be able to control our consumption, overmining the water in our basin. And so with regard to real estate, I believe it's incumbent on the realtor, if they're doing their job, to disclose to the potential purchase buyer the things that are involved with that property, whether it be the water rights, new or old, and other things like that. Water is a commodity that can be bought and sold separate from the property. And so if I were the type of person that I wanted to make a lot of money, I could have a senior water right on my property, but then I could turn around and sell it because it's worth $20,000 to me, and put a junior water right in there for a couple of $1,000, and nobody would know because it wouldn't be recorded. And so I think that some of these things fall back on the person that's involved in that transaction, meaning the realtor. If they're doing their job, then they're going to disclose everything to the buyer, and so the buyer will know what's going on. And I don't think that's the county's responsibility. I think it's very apparent today that you don't either. I agree with Paul on the prairie dog deal. Just some of this stuff is just so overruled and regulated that common sense has to factor in here somewhere. So my concern is you know, can we get this thing resolved to the point that I'm right in the process right now of buying some land and some water rights, and the price of that water has been all over the place because of the fact that there aren't any more senior water rights being developed or made, and it doesn't look like that date of 1935 is going to change. And so it can go from $10,000, $15,000 an acre foot to $30,000 an acre foot, just depending on what the availability of whether that person that wants it can find it. And so it's really impacted a negotiation I've got going on right now with regard to the purchase of this land and this water, because it's been valued anywhere from $12,000 an acre to $25,000 an acre in the last 2 months. And so I'm hoping that maybe what you're proposing here will help resolve that. And these unintended consequences are just they're crazy financially on the money side of things. So, and I'm impacted. I deal with people that are trying to drill a well and trying to understand why the law is the way it is, but that's for the state to determine. I don't think it's your responsibility to be able to police that. I think you had enough stuff that you're already trying to do that with already. So thank you.
Thank you, Jay.
Thank you.
I think the water come up, Carrie, but I think the groundwater management plan can change, right?
Yes, it can.
It can change. It's not set in stone as we recharge, and as maybe we'll bring new water into the basin as we conserve water. It can change. So, just because you have that older water right or the younger water right, it may not ever get to that cut. I mean, we're doing a lot of things and trying to solve the problems, but it can change. So
okay, I hate commenting, so I try really hard not to, but here you go.
I was gonna call on you anyway if you didn't get up, because I wanted your take on it.
We'll go through your office.
The first thing is that when want to know your name. Well, my name's Carrie Jeffries, county recorder.
She's the recorder.
Yeah. Okay, so when we were talking about requiring disclosures at time of recording on all transactions, you're correct. The commission can absolutely not do that. I'm an elected official. My office is governed by state code, so any of those changes would have to go through legislation. The commission couldn't require that. And then the only other thing that my thought is, so you guys require people to record this to get a building permit. That's fine. What's from stopping that person the next week to coming in and releasing it, whether they have a good water right or not, and then it's not going to show up on the title report anymore? In fact, a lot of people might release it because the only thing they're doing is trying to get a building permit. So then what's the point of even making them record it in the first place?
It notices them. It brings it up.
Yep, the notice will be there, and so we'll release
my
saying
only
it's
issue.
not good anymore.
And that was I had that question. I was going to ask that is what were the ability of people to release that document from their title? Is that something that stays there forever, or can they release that from their recording?
It stays there forever. Once it's recorded, it's always recorded. But they could come in and record a release that says, "Nope, my water's fine."
Okay.
Have to bring another document saying it's okay.
They would.
So that's,
but they don't
that's all
actually have to have good water to do that, because I'm not going to verify that their water's good.
Right, exactly.
Yeah, so I just don't know if it would help that much.
I just don't know what kind of document that would be to try to release that by themselves without, maybe the county would have to sign on that also.
Yeah.
For a release.
If you didn't make the county, then again, that's what I'm saying. If the county wasn't involved with that,
So if you release that, you wouldn't have a water right at all on your property?
no, you still would. It's just they want to record something that says they're releasing it so that this isn't showing on their title report that they have junior water anymore.
But it will show.
Even if they record a release?
Both of them.
Right.
Just like a vacation of a like that.
Right.
It shows up and then it shows that it's been vacated.
Ah.
It still shows up.
But do you guys verify it's actually been vacated? That's what I'm saying. Because they could release their water right this without actually having to update their water.
Well, that's because the state regulates water, not the county.
It's a complicated issue. There's no doubt.
Commissioners, I'm David Burton. I'm on the City Council of Parowan. Parowan City had to address this a couple of years ago. So I know it's maybe not relevant to the county per se, but it's relevant in the fact that it had to be addressed. The water, issue is one that I guess public officials have a responsibility to the citizens to make sure that you protect their interest as they have standing now. In Parowan City's interest, the groundwater management plan is proposed. We don't know exactly where it'll end up. That's why we've been very active in trying to start the underground water recharge plan, as has been done in the rest of the county with the Water Conservancy District. And so we're now getting very involved in that. But in respect, Parowan City, with this proposed underground water management plan, had approximately 1,200 acre-feet of underground water, of which 1,000 acre-feet are junior water rights. So we had a responsibility to the existing citizens. So Parowan City passed an ordinance that if any new lot is created, any new use placed on that water, or any new annexation would require them to bring water. And we set a date of December 31st, 1949, because the date I understood was 51. Reed says it's 52, but it's March of either 51 or 2. So we elected to give us a little buffer and to protect the citizens that reside in Parowan at this existing time. We didn't have a choice, and we don't know where that's going to, end up. Hopefully, we can work with the state and and through these underground water management or underground water recharge plans that we can maybe get some credit and get something that will, help with that not being set in stone, so to speak, on those dates. But you know, we've had criticism for setting those dates and manipulating the water market and everything else. But it comes to the point, these are state mandates. The state owns the water. We have appropriated water rights. And they didn't have a choice. That's the only mechanism they really had, was to implement these curtailments under what existing laws that they're, you know, mandated by the legislature and the governor and so forth. And so, you know, I just, in your defense, I'm just going to say you had to do something. And I hope that people understand that water is a limited resource and there's only so much of it. And it can only be divided so many ways. And we don't have that any more control than that. So, but you know, like I said, Parowan Cities had to deal with this a couple of years ago, and we're grateful because of the impact and the problems that we've had to deal with and so forth, because otherwise we would be doing a disservice to the existing citizens and those that have, in this case, existing water rights. Because those senior water rights are a property right, and according to state law, first in time, first in right. And that's what we have to deal with. And so I just want to make that state more for information and know that it's having to be dealt on all levels. So thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, David. David Burton told me that he's the one that's assigned to come to all the county commission meetings, and I'm thrilled to have him. And that was very helpful that you come up and talk to us about what Parowan did. We've been talking about the different entities wanting to know about, you know, things that we talk about, and they don't know. They said, well, we don't know about it. So that'll be very helpful. And I wish other entities would come to commission meeting, or at least watch them on Zoom, so that they, you know, on YouTube, I guess it is. So.
Given the directive by the mayor, she said she knew that there's some others that would watch it. She said, I know you'll go and you're going.
Yep, good job.
Well, along David's point, or Councilman Burton's point, we're not even requiring a certain date. We're just saying, hey, this is your water right. Beware. That's all. You know, you chose what, 49 or 51 or 52, whatever. But we're removing that language. We were requiring 50 years for you to get a building permit if you want to drill a well. We're removing that. We've watered this way down to where it's just, hey, this is a notice. Beware this, you know, refer to the groundwater management plan so you're educated. It's just one more mechanism. Is it perfect? Absolutely not. But it's one more mechanism where we can educate the public, because we can't afford to repeal this whole thing and just bury our head in the sand and keep hoping people learn it. This whole exercise and this whole debate in the community has been very valuable because people are becoming aware of it. Go ahead, David.
We set that date to protect the city.
Yes.
We didn't put a curtailment restriction on individuals. It was to protect the city.
Right. People in the city.
Thank you.
Cal.
So going back to the releasing this document, we probably, before we do it, figure out some form, kind of like a reconveyance of a trust deed. We probably ought to try to work on some kind of maybe attach it at the end, just like a trust deed does. This is being reconveyed to do this, and have some kind. I mean, if it's going to be released, it should be released with either an older water right or attached to the conservancy district, or the cities come in and annex this property into the town and it's on city water, something like that. I don't know, Sam. I'm gonna refer to the legal stuff. I until I seen the
What do you
document,
think,
I don't know
Sam?
if I'd accept it as a release or not until you see the document.
Sure.
Can we do that?
I think that we need to have some further discussion about that because, again, we don't want to get down the road and be like, well, what do we do now? Only
Yeah.
to address it then. So the nice thing about the way the ordinance is written is that we can require this, but it seems like we can update our policy with respect to the release as well. So
Could you add something to this, the bottom of this document before you record it that says this is what it takes to release it or whatever?
sure. I mean,
I mean,
talk about it.
Yeah, I think that's a great idea.
So if
Cal.
we're the ones that required it, we
Yeah.
we have to
yeah, you're the ones
authorize the
required.
release of that.
Yeah, that's my opinion, but the one that comes out of the title company.
Yeah, absolutely.
This is English. I actually have some questions. I'm well educated and I'm not ignorant, but all this legalese and conversations just overwhelming to me. Could you boil it down to me? What is you're concerned about the groundwater? Is that the whole purpose of this water rights and wells being rights being eliminated? Is that the purpose of all
Yeah.
this?
Yes.
Yeah, absolutely.
How do you replenish groundwater? So there's plans.
They've done a lot of recharge. They take water and
We-
and
We have 7 recharge projects in the Cedar Valley. I pair one like Councilman. So okay, I'll explain it to you. And so,
I'm a bottom line person.
right.
Make it simple.
So last,
Operator could understand.
sure. So a lot of the gravel pits in the valley, whether it's Parowan or Cedar Valley, a lot of these gravel pits they've been mining gravel out of to put on roads, crush it and put on roads and different things. And they're great big holes in the ground. The Western Rock pit, for instance, is a 12-acre pit. It's probably, what is it? Yeah, we basically put water in holes in the ground and it soaks into the aquifer and raises the water level.
Build some holes too.
We don't build it. We're using holes that are already built because it took 50 to 70 years to create those holes. So we're taking advantage of the holes that are already there, putting water in them, and it soaks in the
from
ground.
Cold Creek.
So I have another question. How do all these new developers get building permits and
They have to have the good water that comes with their property, or they can't do a development.
they have
The 1934 water to be able to do their
So
projects.
the state is, in the groundwater management plan, the state has said 1934 is the safe yield.
so people with money are just finding these old water rights and buying them up. So
Correct.
Or they have them with the property that they bought.
okay, so 200 acres of land is in the middle of farm country, but someone wants to develop whatever they want, a mega community on that 200 acres, as long as they have a 1934 water right, they can build whatever they want.
Yes, or older. It's a property right. So if that farmer's tired, okay. I'm trying to answer your question, but go ahead.
Well, I thought we were only supposed to have 3 minutes each, and so I.
Oh no, this is this is a little different. This isn't public comment. This is actually actually hooked up to the agenda item, so you can talk a little bit longer, ask questions. That's fine.
Well, I have a very analytical mind. I always try to find the easiest, simplest solution. I mean, I have a question. Why wouldn't the planning commission have more control and authority and vision for conserving water than just blatantly let anyone build whatever they want, wherever they want? I mean, I go back 57 years to Cedar City. We're on property that's been in the family for 53 years. And our future's being curtailed. I mean, where's the planning? I mean,
Can I answer that question? Thank you. So if you got an alfalfa field next to you, and that neighbor that's been farming that for his whole life, let's say he's 80 years old, he's tired, his kids don't want to do it anymore, he has the old water with that land, he has every right to develop that. We have no say. We have no authority to tell him he can't do that, or she. We have no authority to say.
He has a planning commission.
Mhm.
We do.
We have one.
We do.
Nope. Not in those rights, because the state has said 1934 water and older is okay.
What's that have to do with the planning commission and planning and preparing?
They plan all the time. They do planning constantly. Once a month, we have a planning meeting the first Thursday of every month, and they do a lot of planning.
Any kind of population limit or growth limit, or, I mean, anyone who wants to move here can move here and buy whatever they want and build whatever they want? I mean,
If they have the property rights and the right water, they can, because that's a personal property right. That's what this nation was founded on, was property rights.
No, this nation was founded on biblical principles. People fled England and came to America for religious freedom. This was not founded on.
And private property rights.
And you know what? Raw water is not a property. Try and hold water in your hand unless it's frozen.
It is a private property right. So there you go. Any more public comments?
Yes, ma'am.
I don't have notes, and so I'll probably
You're
stumble.
good.
I just wanted to
Could you tell us your
specifically
name,
talk to
please?
this. I'm Carolyn Ray. I live in unincorporated Iron County. I am a realtor. I'm also sit on this Parowan City Water Board, so I'm a little aware of some of what they've had to deal with. But I specifically had some questions of Reed, just of this document, Reed. So I've been to a couple of the previous meetings. If this is unapplicable because of Exhibit A, the subject property, do you just have a non-applicable and you still record it, or will it just not be used?
Sure, I understand the question.
I couldn't.
So say for instance, it's in a basin that doesn't have a management plan adopted, this would not be required. Okay.
Not yet.
Or, and I'm all
Yes.
for the release, because say for instance that they build with their water, then they turn around and become part of the Water Conservancy or something.
Right.
Yeah.
Then could
Yeah.
this be released? So I
Yeah.
do believe that we need to go back to the legalese
Yes.
and make it easy to be.
And the example I
Changed.
used on the rental I had, I
Right.
bought that old water and I had it in a well.
Absolutely.
But I got tired of maintaining the well. It wasn't a good well, and I
Mhm.
put a lot of money into it. So finally, I just got tired of it, and I hooked to the Conservancy District, and I had to give them that right,
That
that
right.
or
Exactly.
1890
Yes,
right, so that I could hook to their system. That's what they required me to
But
do.
it's
That's what I
probably a
understand.
good idea to put it on our statement, on our notification. So
An
that-
avenue for it
Uh-huh.
to be
Yeah, I
easily
think it's a great
released
idea.
as
And I think
as
Sam
said.
can work on that.
And that was my concern, is every single building permit moving forward going to have to
It would.
have this, unless, but only if it's applicable?
Yeah.
That's why we've watered it down to just refer back to the groundwater management, because you don't have one yet. You're, like I said, you guys
Right,
are
we
about
haven't
4 years.
Adopted. They've
Yeah.
pushed back. Barron Valley Pumpers.
Yeah, you guys are about 4 years. You guys were where you were 4 years.
Yes,
You know, 4
and
years
it,
ago.
it
so.
needs to be addressed, and Parowan City is addressing it. But I saw also, as a realtor, I represent property that is basically in the Sevier River Aquifer Basin, but it's in Iron County, so those people would be non-applicable at this point. Okay, that clarifies. Thank you.
Yeah, that's good.
David Burton. I just want to clarify that there are, for people's education, that there are different water basins. And Cedar has their water basin with a different priority date, that can be, that's a potential, underground water management date. Parowan has a different one, Milford out to
Burl.
They're all different. So when I said we decided December 31st, 1949, it was because of that water potential mandate by the state on our priority date. And so I just thought that maybe ought to be clarified, that there's different basins that you're dealing with in the county. and so it will affect people differently.
Definitely. Good clarification.
Thank you.
My
John
question,
wants to make a
yeah,
John.
I just would like to ask Reed as you're walking up there, can we pass this and then add that other on the notification? Is that gonna?
Yes, because this isn't part of the ordinance.
Oh, okay.
This is just a tool we're using to implement the requirement
Okay.
of the ordinance.
Okay. Okay.
Absolutely.
John.
My name is John Whitaker. Thank you. I'm not going to speak on behalf of the county. I'm not going to ask any questions that try and help the conversation along. I'm going to make a statement, and I apologize because I'm going to hurt some feelings. We have talked all the way around this. We've talked to all kinds of people, the state water engineer, title people, real estate people, appraisers, and I think we're missing the point. And I made this statement with Sam the other day, and I tried to recapture it just in a conversation we were having, but I feel strongly that the regulating agency should be the body that gives notice. That ain't us. That being said, and I'm sorry, I'm not trying to throw Nate under the bus. He was so gracious to meet with us. But the wells in the Cedar Valley go down about 2 to 3 feet per year. And as Paul rightly says, you want to know what the value of water is, or your land is, see what happens when there's no water. The good Lord only puts so much water on Iron County. Doesn't matter the basin. It does matter the basin, but really the principle's the same all the way around. We cannot nor should not regulate for the state. And I think that's where we get crossways. And it's easy to see how challenging that is because we're trying to use our regulatory tools to regulate something that really is more well regulated by the body that's eventually going to have to curtail those when we run out of water because we haven't slowed it down much. Last year was a phenomenal year, over 1 billion gallons of water. And on the charts you can see it, and it takes a minute to get there. The last time any substantial change happened to the charts was 84, 85, 86, and that was after those tremendous water years. When you have a new diversion, there is a note on the notice that you get from the state, and it tells you you're in a groundwater management plan area and a critical management plan area, and that your rights might be called, is the term that it says, and that's for a new diversion. That is on that document, but not on the notice of transfer that every new water right recipient, whether I buy a water right or acquire it, that's been existing, it's not on that notice of transfer. And I feel like it should be on both of those. And I think we need to think hard about how we move forward in terms of how things need to be. I think everybody, the water engineer, the title companies, the real estate folks, the appraisers need to, it's a new paradigm. We need to, as Paul correctly said, we can't put our head in the sand about this. But ultimately, that notice, there's two very stark paragraphs that get put on a new diversion, and I've got the language wrong, but the document you get from the state water engineer for a new diversion that talks about being in a groundwater management plan, a critical management area, your rights might be curtailed, and the date of your water. And I think that should be on that one as it is, but also notices of transfer that aren't new diversions. And I've had the conversation with Nate, and it's a big bureaucracy. But I think there is a potential that we cause more problems. Our recorder's gotten up twice and warned us about some of the challenges. A recording is forever, and maybe we figure out the release, but I really feel like this needs to be done by the state water engineer, and we need to ask the question, do you have sufficient water? But not in perpetuity, because that's not our thing. That's all I have to say.
Thank you.
You mind if I respond to that, John? So I don't believe this document. I don't think we're regulating anything. I think we're just warning people. I think we're just bringing to light, say, hey, refer back to the state water engineer for your information.
Parents
We don't have the authority to take water. We don't have the authority to take water away. We don't have authority to regulate any of it. We're just saying, look, number one, I want it to protect the county from lawsuits, and number two, I want if my grandkids ever bought a property and it wasn't notified and they didn't know, this is one more mechanism that says, hey, beware. That's all.
Thank you. I appreciate that. Terry Palmer, Iron County building official. I am coming from the building official side of this. I'm tired of getting beat up on Facebook because we are regulating water. We are not regulating water. We are giving notice of water. The state has adopted the building codes, tells us we have to have water in our house. We have to give notice that there's water for my house. I have to have a house that is worthy to be lived in for a certain amount of time. We have to do that under state law. That's not county, that's state law. We have to give notice for a groundwater management plan. The state has done that plan. We're given notice that they have done a plan. I appreciate that. I appreciate what the commissioners have been beat up over. They've been beat up a lot. My wife mentioned on Facebook last night that the building department has issued this and has done this. We haven't done this. We are giving notice that they need water in the house that's good water. We have come back a long way with water stating that there's a groundwater management plan in place. Follow that. And back to a couple other questions, comments. Not every lot is going to have this paper recorded with it. Subdivisions that have that water for 34 that's tied to the conservancy will not have this recorded. So no, not every property will have this recorded. We're only talking outside subdivisions. So subdivisions that have been developed with water conservancy, other water, that will not have this notice recorded. So we do have to have that responsibility to make sure that we have water for a house. I issue a building permit, says it's got water. I give a certificate of occupancy, says there's water. We have to do that. We have to make sure there's water there. That's what I want to say, is that we're taking that step. We're not saying no, we can't issue. You need to follow certain things to make sure that there's water there. Thank you.
Thank you.
I think this has been a really, really great thing to get this word out. Transparency is always better, always. My concern is those lots that don't maybe know, that I wonder if the state should make them aware of those, maybe being curtailed. I'm concerned about those people, if they don't know that they're. Was there ever a notice when the groundwater management plan was sent, adopted, that those people knew?
Nathan Moses, I was hoping to just observe today.
I wasn't going to call on you.
All right, Nate, I shouldn't have mentioned you were here. And let me just, before I answer that question, say that we have no desire to go out and shut off anybody's well. That would be a tremendously difficult thing to do. I think where this will get caught up is in the real estate transaction documents. And it has been hard for our office, too, to deal with this. This is a state law that we're just simply administering out of the local regional office. We're your neighbors, right? As far as my understanding of the plan, I didn't do the noticing out of our office. Most of that came out of I shouldn't say most, all of that came out of the Salt Lake office, but they did send notices to water users in the basin. It was published in the paper, and there were also small little postage size or just small letters that went out to all the water right holders in the basin, inviting them to these meetings where we developed this groundwater management plan. So there was some noticing done, okay? And then when and if, I'll emphasize that curtailment happens, yeah, certainly there would be notice, right? That would be our obligation to do that. So as of for right now, I don't know. It seems like it would be kind of alarmist from my perspective to send out a notice. We would get a flood of activity in our office, and who knows? I mean, do we notice the guys that might be being curtailed in 2035? Like you say, there's recharge efforts going on, and these plans are front-loaded with the hope that we don't have to curtail water rights. I mean, that's the last thing we want to do. But not sticking our head in the sand and realizing that we can't do anything. I mean, we can just do anything. What we're seeing in those wells is alarming. I admit that. So any efforts that we can make to make this situation better is good. But that's a lot of information for your question. Yes, we would notice. I don't think that we would go out and proactively notice people right now that, hey, maybe your water right might be terminated.
That would be pretty alarming.
It would be pretty alarming, and I think you'd get a lot less negative than positive out of that effort.
But I would say to property owners, look and see what your water rights, the date on your water rights, because they all have them.
Yeah, and anytime anybody comes into our office or calls our office, that is a piece of information that they leave with. We spend so much time messaging.
Yeah, that's great. I appreciate that because it's been a good conversation, and for no other reason that the transparency and to get the word out.
And
the
I admit that
education
too.
is really, really been great.
Yeah, that part has been helpful.
Mm-hmm. Thanks.
Yep, thanks.
Thank you.
Thanks for your involvement.
Seeing no other comment, turn the time back over to Reed for a minute.
Reed, I have one more thing on this whole plan that I wanted to address. We've talked about the water. We've talked about 15B, was it? The land disturbance?
1502.
1502, I'm sorry. 1502. The other one was and I've talked to some planning commission members about this over the weekend, about having public hearings. And my concern is the state has come down and said, look, if the wording is you shall approve this request, then we're not requiring public hearings. And I know that some municipalities are following state law to the T, because they've told me, and I've talked to some of those elected officials, and they've told me that why would we, when the wording is you shall approve this, why invite a public hearing where we give them false hopes that they have any say in this, and then it's a predetermined fact that we're going to approve it anyway.
There is some mitigation, though, isn't there? Still,
is there?
Yeah.
It seems like it would make them up, but I do recognize the value of, when you're considering conditional use permit, of getting public input, so you can, before you issue a conditional use permit, define the conditions, right? So I do get that, but I wanted to read this one statement by the state ombudsman, and he quotes, "State law does not require a public hearing when considering a conditional use permit decision. Nevertheless, local jurisdictions can choose to require them. Consider, however, that doing so presents some problems. The public often misunderstands the law and expects the land use authority to deny the application based on public clamor. In a meeting or in a public hearing, the land use authority may consider factual information presented by the public, supported by evidence or expert opinion, but may not base a decision on the popularity of a use or the applicant, attacks information not supported by evidence or expert opinion, or on emotional appeals." So I think it's a dangerous thing I don't know, it's a tricky one, because I do see the benefit of having a public hearing to look at a conditional use permit, but in that language it also talks, and this is from the state, it talks about how dangerous it can be. So I don't know if you can address that.
Yeah, appreciate that. I'm reading from 1728-050, which is the findings and conditions for conditional use permits. And that's where you're reading that the Planning Commission shall grant a conditional use permit in compliance with this title if, from the application of the facts presented at the public hearing, it finds 1, 2, 3, and 4. Okay, so they can deny it if they find that the use being proposed would be detrimental or injurious to properties or improvements in the vicinity, or that the proposed use is located and conducted not in compliance with the goals and plans, or that it's too impactful, or that they believe that because of the input that they got, determined that it really wouldn't be appropriate in that area for that particular use. And the reason that it's important is because in B, in approving a conditional use permit, the Planning Commission may impose such reasonable conditions or restrictions as it deems necessary to secure the purposes of the general plan and the land management code, and they can be including 1, 2, and a list a bunch of types of conditions that can be put in to mitigate an impact that could be detrimental, so that then it could be granted if they did X, Y, and Z. And so without that review process and input, there's really no way to determine that unless you really simplified the conditional use permit conditions and says if it meets A, B, C, and D, it's granted. But you still have to determine whether it does meet A, B, C, and D.
And you and the Planning Commission have been good about saying, look, they've met all the requirements. We have to approve this, but
That's
we
correct.
will listen to input.
Yes.
Or
if there is a condition that it just cannot be mitigated, and it has been done in the past where a conditional use permit was denied because they felt that it would have too much of a detrimental effect on impact on
The
property
neighborhood
values. In the
Well, and I think a good example was the debate back out in Cross Hollow Hills with the Airbnbs they wanted to build and the fire pits, and if that would cause, one fire would destroy the whole area, and so that was one of the conditions that
so they couldn't have a fire pit.
Right, couldn't have a fire pit. You could have a raised gas type thing to enjoy.
And that's the process.
That's right. So anyway,
so
I just wanted to. I know because I know some jurisdictions
it can complicate it for sure.
Going to the letter of the law, and some are.
One of the other things that plays into that I think is important to consider is that our zoning structure is set up that it allows a lot of uses in a zone, more than what a lot of ordinances do, and they have more zones. So in each zone it says you can do A, B, C, and D. Our zone says we have fewer zones, but within that zone you can do A through K. In other words, you have twice as many options, but a lot of those we're going to review individually. So if we didn't have this provision to review individually and try to see if it fits and make it work, then we would have to reduce the amount of uses that are permitted in that zone. We would have to really reduce those because we don't have the opportunity to review to see whether it would be appropriate or not, and those impacts, whether they could be mitigated. That's the other thing that plays into that.
Thank you.
This allows people more opportunity to do more things on their properties than what we would have to do if we didn't have this provision.
I've been to a lot of the planning and zoning meetings where it's educational too. That you can tell them, we have to pass this, but we can mitigate a few of the issues. And I think that's been very helpful for the people, the neighbors or whatever, that to educate them how the statute works.
Yeah. It isn't without its frustration, and in many respects it would be much easier.
It would.
But in this regard, it provides more opportunity and provides more education and the ability for people to do more things on their property. And for that reason, I think is why the Planning Commission believed conditional use permits could have public hearings and receive notification. And that's the reason that we do notifications on the administrative land use permits as well, to send letters to adjacent property owners. Otherwise, we'd have to shorten the list down of what things they could do in those zones. That help?
Mm-hmm. I have one more question about the R2 recreation. Did you take that out?
Yes.
Then? Okay.
We allowed. Let me go back to the table of uses right here. We did when we first put that in. We hadn't amended the definitions, and there's a lot of confusion between outdoor recreation and recreation commercial. And as you can see here, it did not, for some reason when I pull it up here, it doesn't show the old and the new crossed off.
Yeah, you don't have the yellow on it.
Let me see if I can just show that. Oh, this is a different version. I don't see where I can.
But you did change that to
Yes.
where,
So you can see here, R2 now is a conditional use permit, and it's an administrative land use permit in R5, and it's permitted use in RA20 and A20, where before it was a conditional use and not allowed in R2. So we have broadened that and provided that because we changed the definition of outdoor recreation from recreation commercial. And that is right here, where we just said, made outdoor recreation. See, it was a bit confusing before, and a lot of times for a conditional use, we'd put both outdoor recreation and recreation commercial. But now we're trying to articulate the difference that if it's a commercial operation and they're doing it for commercial gain, then it's commercial recreation, commercial. If it's just for their personal use and it's smaller and outdoor arena for their own horses, for those kinds of things, they're doing a skateboard
For their
ramp
friends
or
and
a little
family.
sports court, and that's why we embellished that and have a swimming pool. They can teach lessons. They can do more of those kinds of things in outdoor recreation that is now more permitted in and easier to do in those zones. So we made it easier for people to do it if it's a small scale
still
and
need
not
a conditional use permit? Not on the
for outdoor recreation only in R1.
Oh.
In R2 it's a conditional use permit, and in R5 it's an administrative land use permit, where before it was not even allowed in R1.
Okay.
The other language we talked about, you cleaned most of that up. It just this public hearings.
Yeah, for the notifications, all
It was a lot.
and the definitions
lot in
under the municipality coordination and stuff like that. I fixed all those.
I want to say one more thing, and I can pick on John because he's left the room. But no, just kidding. But back to John, and I have great respect for John and his opinion. But back to the statement that we're not in the business of regulating water. Well, in a way, we're in the business of land development, issuing approvals for land development and building permits, and we still have the ordinance on the books where large developers have to bring old water.
Correct.
So we are regulating it.
Yeah.
So
I take
and
exception with that comment as well.
And this right here,
had my little summary statement on the water has been sitting on my hands.
and this right here is not even regulated. We've removed that element. This is just simply a notice.
Just a notice.
That's all it is. So
I believe that planning and government responsibility is to help plan for the future. We're not just looking at 11-year possible curtailment or even 1934 curtailment in 50 years. We're looking at a future for this county of 100 years or more. And we have a responsibility to the citizens who have a 1934 or older water right to make sure that they can use that without them having to pay for everybody else to use water. I think that the system's in place and has been in place since the creation of the state and water right regulation. And I believe we have an opportunity and a responsibility to regulate development. We're not regulating the water rights like the state does, but we do have, it's just like the lady asked, is planning, where's planning? Anybody doing anything about our growth? I think we do have a responsibility to the citizens of this county to ensure that they have a place where they can live here in the future and that they don't have to pay for everybody else's coming and doing everything else that would be a requirement of them in the future. And I think that that's what planning does, and I think that we do have a responsibility to do that. And I realize that it's hard for people now to have to bear that burden, but it's a responsibility I think we have for future and for planning. And so I'm off my soapbox.
All right.
And I appreciate your consideration of the ordinance. There are a lot of changes in Title 16 and 17 that we haven't talked about, but we've talked about previously, and I think that we've responded to most of those concerns. And so unless there are any others, I think you had a motion, but I don't know if you had a second.
Well, I'll restate my motion if you're okay, Mr.
Yeah, no, we put I said we'll take care of
okay.
everything at the end.
That was right. That was
so
right.
Yes.
now we're
Unless
looking
there are
for
any other
Now we're
questions,
going.
I think we're ready to move forward.
All right, If you're ready, I'd like to make a motion that we approve the proposed county code amendments, ordinance 2024-1. I would like to strike 15.02 out of that. And this is water priority requirement, subdivision procedures, and land use application noticing requirement updates, titles 15, 16, and 17, Iron County Code in compliance with state code changes. And so that's my motion.
Second.
Excuse me, it's been moved and seconded. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Thank you very much. I will
appreciate all your work on this. It's been a lot
no
big
problem.
one.
And I will make those changes and take all the red line out so it's easier to see what there is, and then I'll get that to John, but I'll send a copy out to everybody to make sure that reflects what your intention was.
I want to thank
you.
Nate and Cal and the realtors and the builders, Terry, everybody, the developer,
Absolutely.
everybody's been involved, because I think that the debate has been good. It's kind of narrow. Not everybody's
It's
totally
accomplished what we intended originally.
Not everybody's
without the
100% happy, but I think it accomplishes.
It makes everyone more aware, and that's really an important thing.
Well, I think we've built some relationships, because I don't think we're done all the way with the big picture, but moving forward, I think we still work on this, and
I probably should have included in that motion that we might want to tweak the release, right? And we can tweak that later.
And again,
bring
that
it
is
back.
just an implementation tool for the ordinance. It is not a
So it's separate.
county-approved
We don't have to have that.
document.
that's just an administrative.
We don't have to. We can
It
do
does
that
not.
administratively.
Yeah.
Okay. All right. Okay.
And Sam will do that. We'll run that past everyone again, make sure this is the one we're going to use.
Great.
Thank you.
Thanks.
Number 6, you're still up.
Okay.
Yeah. I second.
This is a resolution to approve the resolution is for the proposal of the creation of the new Harmony Ranch Special Service District. This is a requirement of the land use regulations for the consideration of a Tier 3 development that's being proposed. We have an application before the Planning Commission that will be on their February agenda. It's for the property identified here on this map and outlined in yellow. Let me just talk a little bit about what the project is and just review briefly its location down here in the very south part of the county against the Washington County line. This road is Highway 144 that goes into New Harmony town area. The public library, the New Harmony Library, sits right across the street right here, and that Texaco station is located on this exit right here. And so it's just south of Canaraville. As you can see here, it's 482 acres. The proposed development, as outlined in this map, just shows where the property is in the gray color here with the roads that are on the property. This is the master development plan showing that they are proposing the development of this property in this general layout. This is the types of uses that would occur on the property. You can see that it has primarily residential, but there's also some commercial development with hotel and other things on there. This is a unique type of opportunity within the county that we don't normally have. And part of the creation of a Tier 3 area is a planned area for a new urban development, and in this case we're calling it a village. Under our definitions, if it's less than 1,000 housing units, more than 320 acres, which is the qualification, we call this a village. But in order to be approved with this kind of density, we're talking about, this is just kind of a summary of the project area, 547 dwelling units on 482 acres with about 40,000 square feet of commercial space and hotel, open space, recreational amenities, mixed housing types. This would not be allowed in the county without central services, sewer, central sewer. This cannot be done on septics. This cannot be done without a central water system of some type. They have an agreement, and they're working on currently with the Water Conservancy District to provide water to this subdivision. They'll have to put in a new tank. There are other things that are required as part of this. So the review of this application requires really three things, and the Planning Commission will be hearing this at their Planning Commission meeting on the 1st of February. It will require a development agreement, which is a contract essentially between the county and the developers to outline the structure of the development, saying it's an entitlement document that allows them to move forward knowing that as they phase this in, this is what they will be able to do. And it provides things that above and beyond what we normally get with most developments, which is a central sewer system, for example, for this area to be on central sewer. It also requires a tier change from a tier 4 to a tier 3 so that they can have this kind of master planned community. And it also requires a zoning restructure to what we call a specially planned area SPA zone. And those are all adopted with those zoning regulations in the development agreement.
Sorry, read especially, what was that? The
Specially planned area,
zone?
SPA zone, SPA, SPA zone.
Okay.
And it's provided in our ordinance. And the development application that we have so far has been really well done, and we are reviewing that currently, and we will have discussions at the Planning Commission. And even though with the changes that we've made and you don't see as much subdivision stuff coming to you, these all three will come to you. The tier change, the SPA zone, and the development agreement will come back to the County Commission for approval, because it's the master approval process to then allow them to come back with a subdivision and do it according to the master plan. That you wouldn't see the subdivision approval, but you're approving the overall master plan. Well, in order to do this, long story short, is they have to create by state law an assessment area, or excuse me, a special service district or a service district, some legal entity that can own and operate the sewer system. The county isn't in the sewer business. The Water Conservancy District, even though we've tried to convince them to do that over the years, have refused to be in the sewer business. And so they're obligated under state law to prepare and create their own service district. Whether it's a special service district or a service district, there are different statutory requirements for each of those, and they've opted, because of the way that they're structured currently, to apply for a special service district that has to be created through the county. So this resolution that we're talking about today is to simply, step one, let me pull it back up here, to put notice that there will be a hearing on March 11th, Monday, March 11th, to consider this. So this is simply a resolution saying this sewer district, or this special service district for the sewer, is being proposed for this area, for this geographic area of this 482 acres, so that they can own and operate a sewer system that's regulated by the state. And they will have to have a certified operator. They will have to, build it according to code, and et cetera, et cetera. And I visited with the state engineer, DEQ district engineer, Paul Wright, on this project, and they've had contact with him as the developers. And they are here being represented as well, and they may want to talk to this and explain it a little bit further. But this is a proposal that is required in order for them to be able to get a Tier 3 approval and to submit for their first subdivision application. We can approve, this will be a several-month process to create the district. We can approve the tier change, the zoning change, and the development agreement without the creation of the district, but we won't accept an application for subdivision until they can show that they can take care of the sewer and that there's a district in place to do that. And so that's why they're starting this process now, is that it's a several month process to create the district, and then they will then have that in place so that they can, as soon as we get these other approvals, come back with a subdivision request. Any questions about that?
I'm curious about the sewer plant. Is it a small portable one that they?
Yeah, they may
have
want
the
to address
solids?
that.
I'd love
Mark
to hear
is
about
here.
that and how it produces the solids and how they dispose of that. And
Yeah, we haven't
the fluid,
reviewed that
what they-
yet. That will come with I keep saying South DEQ approval. Paul Wright, the district engineer, he will approve that system under the state regulations. And so we don't know exactly how that's going to work, and we won't regulate that. DEQ will regulate that and say, yes, this is an accepted treatment method, but they've identified on that plan, I'll show you the location of just this kind of general layout here. Let me show you where the treatment plant would be. Right down here is the location of the treatment plant. From what I understand, their vision is that it would primarily be a building that would look much like the development theme and fit in, so people didn't really even know what it was. They would take the treated water out of that and pump it back up to the pond. That they've got outlined here. They've got a couple of ponds, and they would use that in some of their landscape irrigation and things like that. And it would be a treated water that then they could use for irrigation. And they come in a number of different forms, and a number of different companies make different types of treatment plants.
What does it take the water to? Is it a type 2 or is it the effluent? Is it a type 2 or is it a 3? Or?
Where did the solids go to? What?
They have to remove those from the property, and they would
go
be
to
taken
the
to
landfill?
landfill.
Okay.
Mhm.
The other question is you must have to have backup electricity, like a backup system in case something happened, you lost power.
Yeah, those are all the things that will be reviewed in the design, and that we don't really know all of the details yet, because those would have to be approved as the district would review those and propose those. It will be the district that would propose those to DEQ to how all of that will operate, and then DEQ would approve that. So these are great questions. They're just a little outside of our scope right now, and we don't know the answers to all those yet.
Is there a risk if it goes defunct or something that the county ends up having to take it over? That's probably my primary concern.
You know, that's probably a better question for the attorney. I'm not sure that I have the answer to that question, the legality of the creation of the district. This resolution is just to say we are looking at creating this, we're considering it, and then I think a lot of those details can come. Yep.
Questions.
This is the preliminary. We've got to jump through this hoop before we can jump through a whole bunch more hoops.
Exactly.
I have another question. So a lot of times they're pushing a lot of tax increment type things. This isn't that.
The development agreement had language in it that it could create a PID, a public infrastructure district as part of their financing package. We haven't discussed that yet. It hasn't been proposed. The development agreement had some language to that effect, but in my conversation with Devin Snow, who is the attorney who had prepared this resolution, and in consult with the developers, that's not really the best avenue, I don't think, for the county right now. And we talked about the likelihood of the county considering something like that, and it just hasn't yet been proposed. We would have to review that if that was something that came forward.
Okay.
Any other comments or?
My name is Mark Owens, and I'm part of the project. And the three systems that we are looking at, I would not consider them portable. Orenco, Easy Treat, and Aquatech. These are all three proven treatment facilities, and so it would be a permanent structure. And
I guess that's what I meant. I didn't mean it portable as you hook onto a roof. Right.
Okay. And
yeah.
I don't have any other questions. Call for a motion.
I would move for approval.
You do
Oh.
have a comment.
we-
I don't know.
we
It's
have
not
another
open
hearing.
for.
We have to have.
It's not a public hearing. There will be a public hearing on the 11th.
On.
This is to simply announce that on the 11th of March, there will be a public hearing. That's what this resolution specifies. They will advertise for that, and that'll all be taken care of. So this is just kind of a notice to that effect. I don't know if you want to.
Somebody wants to.
Yeah, if there is any comment, please. Oh, yeah. Yeah, for you first, and then, step up to the mic.
All right.
Step up to the mic and state your name.
My name is Lori Barnowski. I am a resident of New Harmony in the Washington County, which is the entire town is in Washington County.
Right.
But this one little area. Special Service District is very broad. You can do whatever you want with it. And from what I'm understanding, from what I'm hearing, it's strictly for the sewer, correct? Is that the proposal?
That's the proposal, but that can be determined when it's
Later.
created.
Because what
It's
I've
being
been
advertised as a special service district
Right.
for sewer.
Right. I've got a lot of concerns about this, but I'm going to limit it to what they've talked about right here. I see a sewer treatment center right up against the road. I'm not quite sure I'm really happy with a sewer treatment center against the road that I've got to travel on every single day to get in and out of my complex, out of the town. I don't know. Where I used to live, every time I'd go past it, I'd have to hold my breath because it smelled so bad. We have one way in and out of our area, and that's 144. So that's my first concern. Second of all, if you create a special services district, and you may limit it to the sewer, according to what I'm reading, and I'm not an attorney, I am not an expert on this, I do have a degree in law, but I'm not an attorney. You can amend it, you can change it at any time. So my concern is if it's built for just the sewer, that it can totally change because it's administrated separate from all of you. So that's a concern from my perspective.
What do you think that may happen there?
Oh, there's a lot of things that could happen. I mean, as I said, there's a ton of concerns about this complex. And you're going to hear a lot more from people, not just me. I'm just starting to understand what's going on. I'm not an expert on special service districts. I've been reading the law, and it's very concerning. It's pretty much they can do anything they want but jail people.
Like what?
Pardon?
Like what? Can you give us some examples?
They can annex, they can tax, they can change the layouts. They could do whatever they want. So if, right now the plan says single-family homes are on 0.6 of an acre minimum, which is very small for our area, 1 story. According to what I'm reading, they could change that. So you could have a 4-story. You could put it on 0.2 of an acre. I'm just saying this is what I'm starting to trying to understand more about it. So a special service district is concerning unless it's done in the right manner. And I know there's an attorney here who could probably give you a whole bunch of information that I'm not privy to, into the details. I'm going to leave it at that because that's all they're really talking about. My last comment, though, would be this complex hasn't even been approved for the zoning change. Right now, it's agricultural. Mm-hmm. There has not been any kind of, that's, I guess, is March. February 1st is the meeting for the zoning, I believe. I think that was the date. You're going to hear a lot more from people about their concerns about this. Are we putting the cart before the horse a little bit here? In a special district for something that hasn't been approved to even go forward?
Well, in this procedure, there has to be some preliminary approval on things before we can move forward on the other. So this isn't establishing a special service district. This is just the first
talking about
the
it.
first hoop to
Resolution.
approve
Yeah.
a resolution that
Okay.
that the discussion is going to go forward.
Okay, and there was one other thing I just read, and I'd like to make sure that it is specified when they go forward. In order to create, and I just lost my section. Sorry, it's right here somewhere. I lost it. I think it was 210, 201, anyway. And yeah, I did see it in one of the slides, that in order to create a special services district, one of the requirements is, of course I can't find it, something about public health. Here, you must have a public health reason. I'm not quite sure what a public health reason would be. So I just want to make sure that that's specified when they go forward on that. Convenience and necessity are required. So,
Okay.
Okay.
that's about it.
All right.
Thank you for
Thanks.
listening.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Excuse me, Commissioner,
Oh,
Let's.
okay. Go ahead, ma'am.
Yeah, let's.
Go ahead, ma'am. There may be another concern that maybe we can take care of everything at once.
I'm Diana Stiller from New Harmony. I'm back. And I've been thinking for 2 weeks, Mr. Whitaker, last time when I was concerned about public notice and things like that, you asked me if you had a solution, because I hate to complain without being able to help or offer a solution. I still don't have a good one, except for expanding the Zoom access particularly. I know it's difficult with the Planning Commission. I have been working and collecting evidence, suppressing emotions, collecting evidence for about 10 months now, since I found out by accident about this. So setting aside the emotion, which is really hard to do when this is proposed for the New Harmony Valley. It's not just us who live there. I just spoke with someone outside. That's why I come to meetings in person when possible, who said they drive a long ways when they need peace to get to New Harmony Valley and collect their peace at that. But I'll set that aside, and I will stick like Lori did to this. I am also concerned, the precedent. People have this assumption that a lot goes on behind the scenes in government, because it does. All this, that's what bureaucracy does. But the concern with having a meeting for this before any of the rest of this has been done is like, see, it's already a done deal. And I don't know how to combat that. You guys can tell me, like what you just mentioned, Commissioner Blake, that some things have to be done, started ahead of time. But from my perspective as a citizen, and I'm a really well-informed, I can show you my notebook citizen just on this, that I was a little surprised to see this discussion before the zone changes, if any does. It feeds into, I'm trying to keep the complaints, the concerns, everything like that, legitimate and productive. And public hearings, by the way, are the only place citizens get their voice out. Otherwise, no one hears us. But it's really hard to combat that when something like this happens, and it might be part of the process, but it's a little hard to understand. That's all I have.
Okay. Thank you.
Resolution isn't much teeth to begin with.
I know, but can you understand the perspective of the outsider? The average person, it's not their job to know this kind of stuff, and they say, see, I told you it was already a done deal. They're already having meetings on it, and that's...
I guess the challenge, and I respect your concerns and probably have many more, but having served in public office for nearly 13 years, it goes back to what Commissioner Wood said. There's property rights in America, and those people own that property and they pay taxes on it for a long, long time.
Yeah.
And if they meet the requirements, it's got good access to the freeway. It's right there on the corner, and I don't know that it's, I mean, I haven't decided per se, but I do believe in property rights.
I have them too. And that's my property. It's 10 acres. If this was 10 acres and 5 acres, you wouldn't hear a beep from me with no commercial. But I have them too. When I invested my property and my property rights in that valley, it was expecting, they're going to build more big properties down there or something. Absolutely nothing like this. So I'm sticking to that.
Yes, sir.
Craig Parmley. Two of you already kind of touched on questions I have. So, Commissioner Wood, you mentioned things being built incrementally. So you have a proposed service district here. Is everything, the hotel, the market, the treatment plant, going to be built first before the homes are built? We're moving my parents into a development in Washington County, Desert Colors. It's a 55-plus community. And they have to wait till they sell 50 homes before they get their community center and their other things. So is there a provision there for this, or do they have a huge outlay and then they have to sell homes? That's a question I have, just a concern. The second one you brought up, you kind of tangentially touched on it, access to the freeway. That portion 144 is Washington County, correct?
The county line goes down the road.
It goes down the middle?
It's like on the, yeah.
Because I've only seen Washington County chip seal it or slurry seal it or maintain it.
We have agreements like that all over the place because of the boundaries.
But in order
it's like picking up your blade for 100 yards.
In order to build turn structures or signalize, because you have ingress and egress there, you're going to have to encroach onto Washington County. And Washington County is going to have to be okay with any traffic changes you make, which I believe you touched on.
As well as UDOT.
Second is
State
the
highway.
New Harmony Valley, well, part of this second point is New Harmony Valley Master Plan, which wasn't yours, it was Washington County, mentions that before any considerable development happens in the valley, that UDOT's going to need to take a look at the exit 42 interchange and recommend upgrades. So I'm just wondering if that's been considered, if you've reached out to UDOT and Washington County to discuss the traffic impacts. You've got 500 units going in there. We have 350 people maybe in the valley. This is blowing it up. And as both Diana and Lori said, we got one road in, one road out. So there's obviously going to be some changes right there from the freeway. There's going to be some changes at the intersection. For safety's sake, I hope those are being considered. So those were my main concerns, is what's being done with UDOT and the intersection when you get off the freeway. What's the interface with Washington County? What have they proposed on your end for mitigating traffic? I can't see ingress and egress happening there without turn pockets or signals. And what's going on incrementally with the construction?
So that was exit 42?
Exit 42.
Thank you.
And again, is what's required here is the treatment plant gets built, the event center, the store, the commercial, and then do they build homes? Or, what happens if they get into this? Right now, new homes aren't selling really well down in St. George and Washington. What happens if they can only sell, 25 homes in the first year? Anyway, that's it. Hopefully you guys can answer some of those questions.
Thank you.
Who's your name, Lauren?
Lori.
Lori? Okay. So Lori and commissioners, have you traveled up the SR9 to Zion?
I've got it.
And are you familiar with the Marriott Hotel right outside of Virgin going to Springdale?
Gowans.
Can you talk into the microphone?
Okay, I'm sorry.
I'm sorry,
trying
it's
to
not
address
very-
kind
I
of two
know.
sides here, but there is a Marriott on the east side of Virgin there, and that has an alternative treatment facility there. So there is no odor. There is also a new truck stop being constructed in Beaver Dam. I'll call it on the west side. That has an alternative system. So these systems, I think most of the systems that you've ever have smelled odor to are sewer lagoons. And so I don't believe that there'll be an issue with odor. The height of the structures, the topography that you're familiar with slopes to the southeast corner. No, there will not be 4-story structures. The hotel, everything is so preliminary that residential, single story. Everything that we have proposed complies with the county codes. We have not asked for, in the land use agreement proposal, we're not asking for a long list of exceptions or saying, yes, but we want to do this. So, and your concern, I believe, Diana, that this is a done deal. I can tell you that none of these people right here I've ever met.
I know it's not, it's just, it's hard to convince the rest of the public.
There's been a big,
Yeah.
since people found out about this, hundreds of people are getting involved. Flyers are going out, Canaryville and New Harmony.
It's blown up on Facebook. I've seen it.
Yeah, and so there's a lot of people, if you talk to
Misinformation.
9 out of 10 people, it's a done deal.
I give you my word, it is not a done
I'm
deal.
just saying.
I have never, okay, but I'd like to just kind of clarify
Yeah.
that. I have never spoken to any of these people, spoken with Reed, saying, okay, what works, what doesn't work, and we've tried to develop a plan according to the code. This man has a really tough job, you know, and I would not want to switch with him. He really has the best interest of Iron County.
With you.
What's that?
I want to switch with you.
That's not gonna happen.
I'll switch with any of you, right here, right now.
Well, we're trying to create a community that fits in with the harmony of the area. And listen, I live in Pine Valley, so I know, I'm just right over the hill from you. So I am sensitive to small communities and changing things. And I think you will see beautiful homes that say, you know what, this fits in.
Sorry, can we have you speak into the microphone?
Okay, I'm sorry.
People online can't hear.
I was hoping I could talk loud enough, but
You can kind of bend that if you want to.
here we go. Your question about UDOT planning, we haven't got to that stage yet. This is so preliminary in the approval process. You can't go design a wastewater treatment facility, hire civil engineers until we get some approvals, if we get them.
Right.
I mean, you can't get the cart before the horse in this situation. So
I know this is not your concern as a developer or representing a developer, but when you say what represents the valley, I think the concern is that.
Could you come speak to the microphone, please?
Has a vision of it being.
Could you come speak to the mic if you're going to speak? We can't get it on the minutes.
I don't think anybody in the valley has a vision of half-acre lots or 0.6 of an acre lots.
What was your name again, just for the record?
Craig Parmley. Yeah.
Speak in the mic.
Oh, sorry, Craig Parmley. So I think people in the valley, I mean, when they were looking at changing the zoning designation in Washington County, what was it, a year or two ago? People were up in arms that they weren't making it 10 instead of 5. So I understand that you're trying to build something that's going to be profitable, and I understand you have a vision. But what the people in the valley think, and again, I understand that's not your concern. This isn't a popularity contest. I worked in government as an assistant director for a county for a while, and I understand that does not come into play how we feel about it. It becomes property rights and what you're allowed to do by code. But understand that the vast majority of people in Canaryville and New Harmony aren't going to see it that way.
And it's kind of unfortunate because this is not just the typical, you referenced your parents moving into Desert Color. That's not what this is about.
Talking to the mic, please.
Go ahead.
Yeah, this is not about a Desert Color type atmosphere. I lived in St. George for 35 years. I know what you're talking about. Maybe it's higher density than what you'd like to see, but I believe Iron County as well as Washington County has some requirements from the state on affordable housing percentages. That's why some of this property right now.
The townhomes.
No, even smaller lots. Because how do your kids go afford a 10-acre lot? That's going to be really tough. Anyway, so we're trying to accommodate different levels of people. Okay. No. We'd welcome the opportunity to sit down with you and talk with you and try to, and Brad Esposito, you met with Brad, okay? Okay, so see, there is being a outreach to the community to say, let's work together with this and where we can, put ideas together. Earlier in the day, maybe it was this morning, Commissioner Cousins mentioned the rights. You used the example of an 80-year-old man who his health is declining. He can't keep up the property now. This is almost the situation with who this property was purchased from, Dave Davies. He said, I've been approached to make this a solar farm. Would you feel different if it was a solar farm? I don't.
I mean, yes.
Okay, this half the room may, this half may say, no, I don't want a solar farm. He says, don't turn it into a solar farm. So we have kind of a last resort to say, okay, we made a commitment to a gentleman, and we're going to try to live by that.
Okay.
So,
I'll let you have the mic. I mean,
I think that was pretty much,
Yeah.
oh, ingress and egress. Yes, the development plans show that. We're aware of that.
Acceleration, deceleration.
Yeah.
lanes and stuff.
yeah.
So,
If you look at even one car going in and out from each house every day. you're talking-
Could you come up to the mic? Sorry.
I'm Lori. Based on the number of people who actually live off of exit 42, and I think, 300 or so? And if you just kind of do a quick average, 2 cars per house, 1 car goes in and out every day, that's maybe 40,000 events up and down that road in an entire year. Do the same for this. We're talking 300,000, 400,000, 500,000 events. That's huge. That's
can you
huge.
back up
Yeah.
those facts? Or
Oh
the
no,
numbers that
I'm just off the top of my head kind of thing.
I know
When
that-
you're talking
that gets us
500
in trouble,
homes, 500 homes, 2 cars per home, 1 car goes in and out each week. That's 1,000. That's kind of, and then you got buses, and you've got garbage trucks, and you've got delivery vehicles, and you're just talking a huge amount of traffic in influx. So that road can't handle it right now. So that's one of our concerns. The other is, if there's an incident where we've got to evacuate, which has happened because of fires on the mountain, we have one way in and out. One way in and out. And if everybody's trying to get out there at one time, we're toast.
You actually have 2, but the other one's a dirt road.
Yeah.
We don't.
Not accessed in the wintertime.
Going over into Pinto?
Nope.
In the
Yeah,
summertime,
road.
you have access.
Pardon?
Yeah, in the
In
summertime.
the summertime, you could go over
Going
that
up over
Pinto
the
Road.
mountain on that. Yeah.
Maybe.
True.
I'm just saying, there's just things that we want to make sure that we're being heard and we're talking about these, and they're not thought about because they're big issues to us.
So this is very preliminary, and there
Yes.
really wasn't a public hearing
I
for
know.
this.
We didn't mean to take it
Mr.
this
Blake's
far,
been
you
good
know.
to kind of
That's
let
a-
that go, but
Yeah, we're way
right?
outside of the scope
I know,
of
I
this
didn't
agenda item. And
want to go that far,
Yeah.
but we kind of just did. And then also maybe looking at Washington County's master plan for New Harmony, because it's Washington County master plan and Iron County. It would just behoove you to maybe talk with Washington County.
It's going to be a lot of fun, I can already tell.
Yeah.
March 11th is going to be a lot of fun, I can already tell.
Anyway, thank you for listening. We did go way overboard, but.
Okay, good.
all right, is there a motion?
Yes. I would move for approval of Resolution 2024-1, proposing the creation of New Harmony Ranch Special Service District, approximately 482.86 acres, and the description is there.
Second.
Moved and seconded. All in favor?
Aye.
All right. We're going to step out of our role as the Iron County Commission, convene as the Board of Equalization for the next item. Number 7, Tricia Lister.
Thank you, Commissioners.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Tricia's from our auditor's office. Welcome.
Thank you. As you said, I'm Tricia Lister, and I'm here as the Board of Equalization for abatements for the county.
Thank you.
Thank you. So this is all information you've seen before. We just had a veteran slip through the cracks. His application was approved previously, and then he moved into his home, and we missed that right there. So we needed to add him.
Okay.
So all the numbers the final numbers, I guess I should say, have gone up by roughly $800. And so we just wanted to get his application on there and approved. So
Okay.
I think that's it.
Okay. Just call for a motion. Yeah, just I'm reading it, but I'm wondering what
no
that motion's going to look like. But yes.
No worries. If you're looking for information on him, on the last page under the veterans, it'll be for Mr. Kemp.
And you don't necessarily have to say his name, but just the amount is probably.
How do we
about that.
need to do the motion?
I would suggest that you make a motion to increase the total veterans abatements by, I don't have the numbers in front of me.
Is it the
$823.53?
Yes.
Okay.
$823.53.
This one
On the back?
on the very backity back.
So we're going to
Is
approve
the new
it.
total
Okay.
too there?
Yeah, the new total should be under on the back of the first page. It would be the
2353.
78,000 is the abated value.
Oh, sorry.
Oh,
The
the
total.
value.
Okay.
So
Sorry,
so
what-
It's just the 800 that increases.
Yeah, so it's increased by that
would say
much, and then
the motion just needs
we've
that,
edited all
doesn't
the
Yeah.
totals off all the other ones.
My thought was to include the new total veterans
Oh,
abatements,
okay.
but
We don't need
that's
it.
no. Yeah. Sorry.
Okay.
Okay, I'll move to approve the of abatement of adjustment for elderly, low-income, indigent, blind, and veterans. And we're going to increase the veterans by $823.53. Does that cover it?
I'll second that.
It's moved and seconded. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Right, thank you.
Thank you.
Sorry about the
Right.
confusion.
Yeah. No, that's easy. Yeah. If you get the. Oh.
Could you bring a copy down to us when you get it? Yeah. Please and thank you.
Okay. We will reconvene as the Iron County Commission and go to Jen with personnel.
Hello. In the landfill, Greg Myers was selected from the most recent competitive recruiting and interview process to backfill the vacant full-time landfill technician 1 position effective February 5th, 2024. In the Justice Court, Nicole Hudson was selected from the most recent competitive recruiting and interview process to backfill the vacant full-time judicial assistant 1 position effective February 5th, 2024. And then in the fair department, we had an applicant that has expressed that they would love to be the seasonal fair assistant. So we're going to bring her on board. Sharon Garrison, backfill for the seasonal fair assistant position, effective date 4/1/2024.
Great.
Okay. I would move for approval of the personnel outlined by Jennifer. A
Second.
through C.
Second.
Moved and seconded. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Thank you.
Nothing in non-delegated items?
Delegated that I had.
All right. We'll declare the meeting adjourned.